Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, everyone. A pleasant good evening to you all. Welcome, dissidents one and all, to the DueDissidence podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
We have a very, very packed show for you all this evening. We are very excited about it. We have a lot of topics that we want to cover. A lot of headlines, a lot of stories, a lot of sort of sequels to previous stories this week. This is our 5th night in a row on. Not our 5th night on this channel, but we stream Sunday night. We stream Monday with our friends at RBN and Hardlands Media. We had our Patreon and Substack subscriber exclusive stream on Tuesday. That went really well. It was a lot of fun. Thank you to everybody who came to that. If you didn't, sign up at patreon.com/DueDissidence or DueDissidence.substack.com. That was a great time. Last night was the worst show in DueDissidence history. I mean, the absolute most boring, dull as dog shit show we've ever done covering the Ron DeSantis.
I told you when they asked us to be on Two Jews into Impact Play, we should say no.
Exactly, yeah.
You wanted to do it. Fine.
I'll take the L on that. But we had, obviously, last night covering the riveting launch of the Ron DeSantis campaign on Twitter Spaces with Elon Musk, an audio-only conversation between Ron DeSantis and Elon Musk, interrupted by bouts of silence as the tech cutting out. I can't think of anything lamer than that, but we covered it. We did our job as newsmen, and we are here tonight.
It was like the worst White Album track ever.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, it was like all the sound sampling from Tomorrow Never Knows with none of the actual music.
None of the wit. Yeah.
Actually, Tomorrow Never Knows was on Revolver, not the White Album. So I was wrong about that. That was a good reference. It was a good joke.
It was like Revolution #9 without any revolution.
There you go. Exactly. Much better. Much better. All right, folks. Well, we are going to get right into things tonight. We're doing things a little bit out of order, but for very good reason. We have a very special guest who we want to welcome to the show. He is the host of the Sharpe Way podcast on YouTube. He was also a gubernatorial candidate in New York State for the Libertarian Party in 2022. Please welcome Larry Sharpe. Larry, great to meet you. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course, happy to be here. I also punished myself in 2018, so I ran in 2018 and 2022 for a double dose of punishment.
That's right. You've run twice. And I definitely want to talk to you about those runs. But you mentioned before we went on, and I noticed a few nights ago, you were in Dutchess County. You were in Poughkeepsie, New York, which is very, very close to where I grew up. I grew up in Newburgh, only about 15 miles south.
I know it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you toured the entire state.
For those who don't know, I literally go across the entire state every year. I go to all 62 counties every single year. This is my 6th year in a row. I'm the only one who actually crosses the state, even when I'm not running. And I do it because I talk about localism. I talk about, caring about the state. So if I'm going to talk the talk, I got to walk the walk. So I walk the walk and I meet people, and I know what New Yorkers want and care about because I actually talk to them.
Yeah, even when you're not asking for a vote in return. So that is definitely admirable of you, for sure.
Are you suggesting that Kathy Hochul is not a woman of the people?
I think at one point she may have been, maybe when she was a child. But since then, no, she is not. She is absolutely someone who is clearly privileged. She's been part of the government for decades, both local and national and statewide, and everything you hate about New York, she has been part of. So she's one of them. The glory that Kathy Hochul is, and she's good at certain things, and that is grifting. She's very good at giving out jobs to her friends and her family. She's actually better than Cuomo at that. Cuomo was more charismatic than her, but she is the best at giving out jobs. She's the Oprah of jobs. You get a government job, you get a government job, you get a government job.
And stadiums.
Stadium
apparently.
too. Yes.
Yeah.
The issue with the stadium, and for those of you who don't know what that is, in Buffalo, we are financing, the state is financing the Buffalo Bills new stadium. And the problem with that is not that I don't want the Buffalo Bills to stay. If you know Western New York at all, Western New Yorkers love the Buffalo Bills. Literally in the morning during the football season, a greeting is not good morning. A greeting is go Bills, go Bills, go Bills. That's how much they love the Bills in Western New York. So
there's not much else there.
Well, also true. Buffalo has been dying for over a decade. Rochester dying for over a decade. The worst school districts in New York State are in Rochester. So I'm sorry, the worst school districts in the country are in Rochester, New York.
Is that true?
Yes, that's accurate. In fact, if you are a black male, the odds of you graduating high school in some parts of Rochester are less than 20%. That is how bad those schools are. And by the way, for those of you who are going to tell me, Larry, it's because we don't fund the schools, New York State funds the schools more than any other state. We give the maximum amount that in their state. It's not the funding.
All right,
it is
Larry.
the system that's broken.
There's a little off subject, but maybe you can explain this to me because I went to Buffalo in November. So since you are so well traveled in the state, how the fuck are there like 18 theaters there? Like, how are all these theaters there? How are they paying for that? There are no people living there.
No, there are people living there. There are. Don't get me wrong. There's the metro area of Buffalo is about 2 million people. If you count the metro area.
Is it?
It's about, yeah.
Where are they?
The metro area.
Where are they? I took
they're in
like
Canada
over
and
100
Pennsylvania.
photos, and there's never anyone in the background.
They're in Canada and Pennsylvania. That's where they are. But you got to count the entire metro area. And they travel to Buffalo. And that's why, right? If you come down here downstate and you want something of culture, where do you go? You go to New York City, obviously. You go there, you go to Buffalo. That's what's there.
So it's people from the surrounding area going to the theaters? That's what it is?
That is correct. Have you been outside of Buffalo? It's very rural. You go to Wyoming County, Cattaraugus County.
Oh, yeah.
These counties are super rural. So the biggest place to go is Buffalo. And these people, they actually drive all over the way. Western New York is drivers' country. They drive everywhere. They don't mind. They'll drive 3 hours to Buffalo to go see a show. Easy. They don't care at all. 100%. Yes, that's why they have those theaters there.
So it's a regional hub. It's not the local population.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. So
I knew you'd be the man to ask.
Yeah, I did know. Yes.
Let me ask you something, because I saw a video of you speaking in Poughkeepsie, New York, a few nights ago. And you said something that was very striking to me. We don't hear from a lot of libertarians on the show very often, but I found that you, as a third-party libertarian, you talk about the Republican Party much in the way that a lot of us sort of disaffected lefties talk about the Democratic Party. You sounded almost exactly the way we sound, except you're talking about the GOP. What you said was that the Republicans have almost no chance of winning statewide races here in New York, but they're not interested in winning. They would rather lose than disrupt their grift. And that's exactly, almost word for word, how we describe Democrat hacks here on our side of things. So do you want to just sort of flesh out that point a little bit? How are the Republicans
100%.
grifting in the same way that the Democrats are?
In New York State, and I think many states are this way, running the Board of Elections is actually not officially Democrats, Republicans. It is, quote, the top two parties. So that's all they're doing. And then they make sure that no other parties can get anywhere to the top, and they run it. And these are all jobs. These are all government jobs. So they all want to make sure they're all having government jobs with government grift. As long as they're controlling everything, they have all those government jobs with government grift. That's why they want it. But something else, they keep raising money because they keep lying to Republicans in this state. And every year they tell them, this is the year. I'm sorry, if you are Republican in New York State, it's never going to be the year ever again. The Republicans have not won any statewide elections in this state, nothing, not governor, not senator, not AG, nothing, in 22 years. And the state is getting bluer, not redder. There are 6.5 million registered Democrats in this state, 3.7 non-affiliated, and only like 2.5 million Republicans, and the number's going down. 300,000 New Yorkers leave this state every single year. In 1 month, 6,000 New Yorkers changed their driver's license from New York to Florida. In 1 month, 200 a day. Most of those are Republicans. The state's getting bluer. Those days are long gone, never going to happen again. And they know it. I'm not the only guy who knows this. But they still every year go, yeah, we want to actually make this work. We can do it this time. And millions of New Yorkers, Republicans with hope, give money to the Republican Party. And here's what actually happened. Lee Zeldin, and I don't care if he gets mad hearing this, Lee Zeldin was afraid he was going to lose his seat in the redistricting in Long Island because he was a bad congressman who never showed up. They didn't like him there. He's worried. So he thinks, what can I do? I'm going to lose my seat. What can I do? Now, Nick Langworthy, who runs the Republican Party here in New York, goes, hey, I got an idea. If you'll help me grift, you can run for governor. We'll lie to Republicans here and tell them that they can actually win. They'll give us millions of dollars, and then you can take that money, open up a PAC, and be rich for the next 10 years. And Lee said, that's a great idea. And Nick said, I'll lie, get a bunch of money saying that I can beat Hochul in this state. They'll give me money. Then I'll run for Congress, and then I'll be able to grift. And that is literally what happened. They raised $13 million, knowing they were never going to win. I predicted exactly how much they would lose by. I actually said it. I had the receipts. I told him how much he'd lose by. He lost by that. Then afterwards, I said 3 months later, Lee Zeldin will be part of a PAC grifting. And what is he now? Part of a PAC grifting. And Langworthy stabbed Carl Palladino in the back, ran against him in Congress, and then became a congressman. So both of them grifted perfectly. Not just that, Joe Pinion, the guy who was also running, who was looking to be the senator, that guy's got a gig now on CNN. All the top guys grifted. The Republicans got suckered, lost all their money, and then the state still sucks. Nothing changed. And the argument they say, well, Larry, you can't win. Well, you know what? He came in second again for the past 22 years. Nothing changed. What if I would have come in second? Imagine what I would have done if I would have come in second. You want change? Vote third party. Now, obviously, I'm biased. I want to be libertarian. However, the Forward Party last year endorsed me.
Yeah, that was the question I had for you. I was going to talk to you about that. So go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Libertarian that the Forward Party endorsed. I was the only one they did across the entire country, because I want third parties to win. Third parties are the only way we fix this state and we fix this country. Otherwise, we just get deeper and deeper into this horrible fight, and it's just a grift. I'm obviously biased. I wear my libertarianism on my sleeve, but I would take Forward too. I want a third party.
Yeah, so like their main criteria when they were choosing who to endorse in that slate of candidates who they picked, the thing they were looking for most was commitment to electoral reform, right?
100%.
Opening up the system to different third parties, ranked choice voting, this and that. So do you want to speak about your stances on those issues?
Absolutely. I call it the brogram. I hope that sounds cool. BRO, brogram.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
Easier ballot
I've
access.
heard worse.
Right? Yes, there we go. You've heard worse. Yeah. Ballot access right now in certain states is impossible. New York State, literally impossible. You have to get 45,000 signatures in 6 weeks during a time when there's still snowstorms in New York. It is impossible. How do I know it's impossible? 3 people tried it last year and couldn't do it. Me, someone who's done it before and has a party behind me. Lee Zeldin, the sitting Republican senator, and the guy who ran, tried to get a third party line. He couldn't do it. And Harry Wilson, who was a multimillionaire, he couldn't do it. It is literally impossible. And I sued them before saying, this is impossible. They said, no, it isn't. Then I sued them after saying, look, I said it was impossible. It's impossible. And they still said no, even though last year was the first year in 80 years where there was no independent candidate on the running for governor in New York State. And I am 100% for more easier ballot access. For the most important reason, there is no harm to me being on the ballot. I was on the ballot in 2018. Millions of people chose to not vote for me, sadly. But because you can not vote for me, you can just go, Larry Sharpe, I don't like that guy. And they will just not vote for me. Totally fine. But when I'm not on the ballot, there is harm. And the argument I put towards the court was a very simple one. Every single 2 years, every cycle in New York State, about 500,000 New Yorkers vote third party. Do they think that person's going to win? Of course not. They don't believe that, but they still do it. So why would 500,000 New Yorkers vote third party knowing they're not going to win? It is literally a protest vote against the system. It is your First Amendment right. It is free speech, and the court is literally disenfranchising Americans, New Yorkers. And they went, I don't care. I'm part of the system. You know, it's my system too. No. So that's why I want ballot access. But the second piece I want is the R, and that's ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is so important because ranked choice voting takes away the I'm scared of the other guy winning. It allows you to both vote offensively and defensively. So let's say you think that you like me. You think Larry's a good guy. You'd love to vote for him because you like me because I'm good looking. And I am good looking, so that's a valid reason to vote for me. So you decide because I'm good looking and to vote for me. I love it. But you're afraid that maybe the Republican might win. So now you vote for me first and the Democrat second. Offensive, defensive vote. If I win, you got a good looking governor. Life is good. If I lose, your vote goes to the person who you're worried about anyway, and you get your second class, your at least vote. At least it's not that guy.
And in your case, it would be Lee Zeldin, who's not good looking at all. So unfortunately, there'd be a major drop off there.
Exactly. 100%.
Russell said Lee Zeldin looks like the flustered manager at a McDonald's when the milkshake machine's not working right. That's how Lee Zeldin looks.
Yes.
I thought that was very good.
Yes.
And you can pass that on to him.
And then the last part is open primaries. Now, there is an argument to not have open primaries, which is you're kind of hurting the party system and the value of parties. And I get that part. I do. However, the way everything is gerrymandered now, people don't have any rights in votes, right? Where I live in New York, right, my area, the Republicans haven't run a candidate in 10 years. They haven't run a candidate where I am. So you only get the Democrat.
No, where are you at?
Yes, I'm in Queens. AOC is my congressperson.
Okay.
Do you know where I live?
Where are you? Astoria?
So, yes, I'm in Astoria. Yep.
Right.
So where I live, they don't even bother running candidates anymore. So if you're not registered Democrat, you have no say in your government. It's not fair. Because of gerrymandering, you have to have open primaries so anyone can talk and have a real representation and actually have a democracy. Otherwise, we don't have one.
Well, it does this partly in New York State specifically. It's always been this machine politics state. It goes back to Tammany Hall. That's why it's particularly impossible to get any kind of third party. You can't even get momentum in the Democratic primaries. You have to be registered as a Democrat. I think it's 90 days, at least 90 days before the primary, to make sure that nobody registers to vote for an insurgent candidate.
Yes. They go out of their way to stop. They make everything hard. And they also, the sad part is they go out of their way to, if they find anything that's wrong, they err on the side of throwing you off versus erring on the side of keeping you on. Right. They err on the side of your vote not counting versus your vote counting. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah. So as a libertarian, as a third party candidate running for governor twice, what was it like trying to build momentum, trying to organize events, trying to get media? Because this is the reservation that a lot of people have, because Russell and I are both, as we brand ourselves now, post-duopoly, right? Like there's a lot going on in the Democratic Party now. There's a big divide where people want to run insurgent, anti-establishment candidates against the party bosses. And we have kind of said, no, let's step back from that. Let's commit to outside organizing, which includes mutual aid efforts and direct actions, but also to the extent that you do want to engage in the sort of electoral system at all, do it through these third-party routes. What were the biggest obstacles in your mind to organizing and sort of building momentum, and where did you find opportunities for success?
Yeah, biggest. I could talk about this literally for hours, but I will not kill your show. You'll have no one watching if I do that. So I'll be good. I won't go hours. I'll hit the biggest one: money, and money. That was the biggest issue no matter what. The entire system is pay to play. That's the problem. The whole system is pay to play. So in 2018, when I had a really good campaign in 2018. My 2022 campaign was a disaster because I had to spend $400,000 just trying to get in the ballot and getting sued. Didn't work. 2018, I raised $500,000, and that was nowhere near enough. Nowhere near enough. Why? I couldn't get into polling. And you might say, why not? Well, I was on the ballot and I was raising money. So we called the polling company and said, well, why aren't you on the polls? Why aren't you in the polls? They went, well, you don't buy the poll. I said, what? You got to buy the poll. Oh, so if I buy the poll, then I'm in the poll? They went, yeah. How much does the poll cost?
I see. I never knew that.
$40,000 for the big boys.
Wow.
40 grand.
Wow.
Now, what if I want multiple polls?
I never heard that. That's crazy.
Yes, nobody knows this. That's my
nobody
point.
knows it. Even guys like us who eat, live, and breathe this stuff. I've never heard that. So so these parties buy themselves into these polls.
Correct, but they often use PACs. So
right, sure.
But
either way, they get paid. Right, they get 100%. Paid.
So then, who do you think writes the questions when they buy the poll?
Right,
the PAC does. So now you guys love me so much, you want me to be governor in 2026. So you start a PAC and you raise $2 million because you love me. Then you go buy a poll. You call the PAC the Fairness in New York Pact. You call it something cool like that. And then it says, this is a poll sponsored by the Fairness of New York group. Oh, wow, it must be fair because it's in the name. And then you make a poll that's blatantly biased towards me because you love me. And I all of a sudden poll at 37%. How cool is that? That's how the game's actually played. I didn't know that until I ran. So pay to play. But I'm still not done. I wondered, I said, why am I not being covered? Like, why are people not covered? Why am I not in the news? Why am I not there? And I said, we asked them why. And they said, oh, well, you don't buy ads. I got to say, what? Yeah, you got to buy ads. Buy ads will cover you. Just buy ads.
Oh, wow.
That's it. So my biggest problem was, without question, cash. If you buy ads, you get in the paper. If you buy polls, you get into polls. If you get into polls and you get into the mainstream, you become mainstream. So cash is the biggest. There are many issues. I can go on forever, but you asked for the biggest one, cash. You have to be able to raise lots of cash. And the problem is most people don't want to give if they think you have no chance of winning. So it's a double-edged sword. You can't win, so they won't give you money. They won't give you money, so you can't win. So it's a very challenging piece. So raising money is the most important thing. If we can raise that money, you can become legitimate. Because and the parties knew that. They knew I learned that in 2018. So they didn't bother trying that. By the way, I was in polls in 2021 because I knew some people who could buy me some polls. So I had some polls. I knew the game. I learned in 2018. I was polling at 6% before I ran. The Republicans saw this, and this goes to your point. I actually was very open. When I was polling at 6%, I thought, okay, this is amazing. I hadn't even announced yet, right? So but I've been crossing the state for 5 years. People knew who I was, right? So I was able to have a decent poll. So I go out there and I say, okay, hey, independent parties, conservative party, Republican party, forward party, why don't you get behind me? We'll create a coalition against the establishment, Governor Kathy Hochul, and we'll win this thing. And other parties were like, yeah, that's a great idea. I went to Republicans. I said, I'll do that. Republicans went, nope. You got to become a Republican. I said, then I lose. That ends it. Now I can lose on my own. I've done it already. I know how to do that. I got the losing part down. I don't need your help for that. I need your help to win. And they were like, well, no, then you can't. I said, okay, tell you what, do me like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is literally an independent, but he runs the Democratic Party. Let me run as a libertarian in your primary. And if I win the primary, everybody's happy, right? They went, wow, you could win a primary. I said, I will win your primary. I'll win your primary. I'll have 4 lines. Because in New York State, for those of you who don't know, you can run on multiple lines at the same time. Very rare. So I can have 4 or 5 lines, all good, have a chance at winning. And they went, you're right. Oh my God, we're going to sue you off the ballot. That was their answer. Their answer was, we're going to sue you off the ballot. It wasn't, oh my God, we could win. So I literally gave the Republican Party in New York State a chance to win. And they said, wait a minute, that might screw up our grift. So we're going to sue you off the ballot instead. So for my attempt to try to win this thing and to change New York State, my reward was a lawsuit, which cost me about $100,000, and I still lost.
Well, I this is one of the things that's fascinating to me. I think, a lot of Democrats think that corruption is, they're brainwashed. Corruption is a conservative phenomena. New York's a blue state, so it's not corrupt. Very few of them know that it always ranks towards the top of the most corrupt states in America. And that is partly because it's generally been this one-party state, really, for most of its history. With brief interludes, it's been run by Democrats for over 100 years.
Agreed. But the last 22 years, utterly dominated by Democrats. I mean, just now supermajorities, just utterly run. And to my point, people would say, well, Larry, even if you won, so what? You can't do anything. That's not true. If I had actually won, obviously a fantasy world, but if I had actually won, that would mean I'd have a mandate, number one. So that means people would see that. But number two, our Senate in New York State is almost split, almost 50-50. All I have to have is 5 people in the Senate flip libertarian, and I run the Senate with a swing vote. People don't realize that. When you're third party, you just need enough to have a swing vote. In our American U.S. Senate, 2 libertarians, 3 at max, we run the Senate with a swing vote. So you can actually make impact as a third party, not having 51%, just having enough to do a swing vote.
So if you were governor, what would you do? What would a Governor Sharpe do?
Oh my God!
To straighten out New York State. Because we don't talk to a lot of libertarians, honestly.
Yep.
You guys eat all the potato dip. We don't like it.
Eat potato dip. What is that?
Yeah,
it must be an inside story I'm missing.
Yeah. You eat all the dip at the party when you invite the libertarians.
Is that what we do? I'm sorry.
Yeah, they feel like they're entitled to it.
I'm sure you've seen the meme of how a libertarian eats pizza and it's a big pie with a triangle cut out of the middle.
Okay, yes. Well, I'm on the keto diet, so I don't eat any dip or pizza. So it won't be me at least.
All right.
Yes, it won't be me at least.
Yeah.
But no, the reality of it is what I literally did is, for those of you who actually care, I did an 8-hour live stream on policy for New York State. If you care, it's at Larry Sharpe, my YouTube page. Go there, type in 8 hours. I didn't even take a break. No food break, no bathroom break. 8 hours straight, direct policy, how to fix New York State. I am only about policy. So to say what would I do, I could go on for hours. I wasn't joking. New York State is completely broken in so many ways. Instead, please give me one problem, and I'll tell you how I'll fix that problem. Is that better? Tell me one problem. I will tell you how I'll fix that problem.
Okay. So
the MTA, as an example, the MTA, is that one you want me to fix? Schools. What do you want me to fix?
All right. What's your position on defunding the police?
Excellent. Okay. So policing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have a position on defunding the police. That is a left-right paradigm that I won't touch. I will absolutely reform the police department and actually have a plan for it. Right? You want to go through 3 specific things to fix it as a general rule, and then as a smaller piece individually. The overall rule, you want to end qualified immunity. You want to allow them to actually cover have their own insurance, professional insurance, liability insurance for every police officer. That does matter completely, right? They should have their own professional liability insurance. This way, if they make a mistake or screw something up, the insurance company takes care of that. Now, here's the problem. Larry, are the unions going to allow that? Yes, because you make the unions a carrier. So the unions are now an insurance carrier. They still get their cut because I'm not getting rid of police unions. So the police unions still get their cut, but they get their cut off of the insurance company, off of the insurance premiums. So now it's in their best interest now, unions, to support good cops and not bad cops. The unions too often spend 90% of the time supporting bad cops, ignoring the good cops. So if you now instead have that, you now create an incentive for the unions to support good cops. Bad cops get priced out of the market, and they also can't just go across the river and get a job in some other market as a bad cop because the insurance company follows them. So they can't do that. So you do remove qualified immunity, have them actually do that, have their own insurance. Next, end the war on drugs. You have to stop the war on drugs. There's no need for all this, fighting on cannabis. No, stop that war on drugs.
Would you want to if you had the power, would you want to legalize all drugs?
No, the state is not ready for that at all. What I would do is I would completely destroy and utterly eliminate the Office of Cannabis Management. Cannabis is the first step. That should be 100% legal. That should actually be, without question, treated like a plant. That should be treated like a plant with maybe one thing that's different, which is you only can buy it if you're 18 years or older. That's it. Otherwise, it's a plant. I would say regulate like onions, because in Western New York, we grow onions. But whatever. I don't care. Peas, carrots, you pick. I don't care. Carrots, whatever it is. But you do that. That will then stop them from actually attacking the way they attack. Also, stop no-knock warrants. No-knock warrants. You get rid of those things, you will begin to slowly change the police force. But with that in mind, there's another piece you have to do, and that is individually allowing people to be policed how they want to be policed. And that program is a little bit separate. That one, you want to break your police force into 4 separate places. The first one you have it is active policing, right? That's important. That's getting the bad guys. But also social workers. You want to have a social work aspect to your police force. You also want to have a family law part to your police force and a quality of life to your police force. I don't want active cops who are just at a crime scene going to someone's, where there's a husband and wife screaming about money. That is not going to end well.
Well, you know what? I mean, a lot of the people in the defund movement, there's some argument, and I tend to be on this side, that it's a bad slogan. Keaton, I think, is on the other side.
It is.
Yes. But a lot of them, that is what they're describing.
It is. And that's what I'm doing. I just don't use the word.
What?
Yes, but I don't use the word. I also add a community part for each one. Family law, you actually, with family law, you actually keep chaplains with you for family law. So the chaplains ride with the cops. Not just that, for social workers, you have the social workers work with the cops, and they're all armed differently. But more importantly, you make sure your cops have to rotate between each one. They rotate around, because I'm a former Marine. You don't keep Marines in combat for any more than 15 months. That's the maximum, usually less than that. No more than 15 months. Why are we keeping cops in the streets for 5, 10, 15 years? Get them off the streets, out of active policing, get them sitting with a social worker, get them going to family law, get them into quality of life. Quality of life is like tickets and noise pollution, stuff like that, right? So you go into that, have them go in that world. They don't have a shotgun in the back. They don't have a firearm in the back. They only got maybe a billy club and a taser. They're working with somebody in the community policing.
Because you feel like the realities of dealing with crime creates tension and PTSD 100%. Symptoms.
Yes,
it's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
Well, here's the issue. Do I think that cops are any more or less racist than anybody else? No. Do I think they become more racist? Yes. Why? Because of things like civil asset forfeiture. We have to end civil asset forfeiture, right? End that. What happens?
Agreed.
Cops are taught that where they can hunt is in places where they don't have lawyers and they aren't wealthy and they use cash. right? Because I can't steal your money if you got a credit card, but I can totally steal your money if you got cash or stuff like that. So where do I hunt? I hunt in brown and black neighborhoods. Well, if I'm spending the last 5 or 10 years of my life and every bad guy I meet is brown or black, what do I start thinking? Of course.
I've seen that in cops. I know cops, who after a lifetime of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Of course. So I don't think cops start up trying, I'm going to go kill black people. I don't think that at all. Do I think they become that way with the system? Yes. The system is what hurts them.
Oh, I've seen that happen with a lot of people. Absolutely. Yeah, I know a decent number of cops. We don't usually take...
Russell, I'm sorry. Did I answer your question, Russell?
Yes.
Good.
All right, let me ask you something else before we let you go, because we have a limited time left. But Roger Meadows, I got you here. I saw you on YouTube. You directed me to Rockfin. You asked me a bunch of stuff. Apparently, we have a big fan of yours in the audience here who knows a lot about you, and this would be very interesting to get your answer on. And I admit I'm going into this totally ignorant of what he's asking, because I have not researched you this thoroughly. But Roger says, tell them about you being for worker co-ops and public banks. Is that true? Because that's not something those are not two ideas you would associate with libertarianism. So I'd be fascinated to get your answer on it.
The Republicans who lie and call themselves libertarians, you would not do that. But actual libertarians are for an actual free market, which means we want to support any business the way ever you want to support it at a local level. So right now, what happens in New York
including public banking?
100%. And let me talk why it matters.
Sure, of course.
Most Democrats will talk to you about this and do nothing. I have an actual plan to support worker co-ops. Here's how you do it. Several ways you can do it. Number one, anytime a business is going to go bankrupt, it goes to the state. The state should, whenever a bankruptcy is declared, the first thing you do is you give a 30-day window and allow right of first refusal for workers to buy that business. That does not exist in New York State. It should. Give the workers a chance to buy a broken business. They may not want to, but give them the right of first refusal before the vulture capitalists come in, right? Because if you don't give that, vulture capitalists will come in. Banks will come in and suck it all up. So you give them 30 days to allow them to do so. What would make it easier? Two things would make it easier. Number one, you have a very special rule in New York State. If the state owes you money, whether that is through settlement, whether that's through disability, whatever it's through, whether that's through a lawsuit, whether that's through unemployment, if you want to purchase the business, the state will give you all your money up front. As long as you have at least 5 people with you, all the money goes up front, and that can be backed by what he's talking about, a public bank. A public bank's value in my eyes is not the public banking. A public bank in my eyes assists with localized credit unions, which you do not do well at all in New York State. Credit unions are literally co-op banking. So Charlie's getting mad and saying, but we need capital for that. Yes, Charlie, that's what I'm talking about right now. That's how you get it. You get it by it's backed by a local credit union, right? And the government is giving you your money up front. This way is no extra taxpayer dollars. The libertarian part is no taxpayer dollars. But if I already owe you the money, I'll give it to you. And the bank will support you. That local credit union is supported by a public bank, which will now allow localized people, locally owned, to all of a sudden now buy these local businesses to support local co-ops. One of the reasons why co-ops aren't supported is the financial industry doesn't like them. It is a cultural issue, right? So if all of a sudden now co-ops start being more acceptable and start being successful, regular banks go, oh, this actually works. We want to make money too. We'll start backing co-ops. To his point, they can't get capital because nobody supports them. I support the idea of you owning your own life, owning your own business, owning your own job, owning your own labor. I know that sounds like I'm a leftist, but no, I'm a libertarian. Own your own labor. Now, the Democrats say they care about that. They don't. I do. I want you to own your own labor. If a co-op is the way you want to do it, do it. In fact, if there's more co-ops, we could have less unions because we'd have more co-ops. Everyone's trying to union bust. Okay, don't union bust. Make it all a co-op. Then who needs a union then? The workers own their own labor. Who cares about unions at that point?
All right, well, that's an interesting answer. I mean, we could go on for a long time based on that, but we do have to wrap now. We are going to be on your show next week, so that's good news. We'll get to continue this, and we'd love to have you back sometime because it was a great talk, and thank you so much for being here. Before you leave, you want to let everybody know where they can find you? YouTube,
Absolutely.
Where they can follow you? Go ahead.
You can go anywhere you want that says Larry Sharpe. I own all the Larry Sharpe things, whether it's YouTube or Twitter or Facebook. Go to Larry Sharpe. I own them all. Please come to me. I'm happy to watch. I do my show almost every night at 7 p.m. except Monday at 9 p.m. I have a lot of stuff on there. If any of you are crazy about policy, I literally have an 8-hour policy thing. It's time-stamped, so you can pick the things you care about if you care. It's all there. My LarrySharpe.com is also a policy library, all types of policies for all those things. Happy to have the conversations. And I do a call-in show from Western New York remotely every Tuesday at 1. You can call in, yell at me, tell me I'm wrong. Happy to have the conversations.
All righty. All right. Well, we will see you next week on your show. We're on your show the 31st, so I'm trying to think of what day that is. I think that's next Wednesday.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, and so we will see you again then, and we'd love to have you back on here sometime in the future because I could tell from this conversation there's a lot more that we would love to talk to you about. But thank you so much for this evening, Larry. It was a pleasure meeting you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Larry.
Have a great evening. Bye-bye. Larry Sharpe, everybody. That was a great talk. That was
very interesting.
It's always interesting talking to libertarians. You know, one of the things that he mentioned also in that video that I was talking about is he mentioned that I think something, and I probably should have ran this by him while he was on, but he mentioned that he had a lot of support from people who identify as Democrats, right? That crossover appeal is really, it's a real thing. It's a very significant thing. And so, you know, that's part of what we talk about a lot on this show, and I think a lot of what he says really represents that very well.
That's why I shut up, because I was like, all right, man, I could go on with this guy all night, because it was interesting. I mean, it reminded me of what I experienced when I went out with the Trump indictment with the cowbell people, that, you know, all the most interesting people who had all the intellectual ferment were not the people who were there to cheer on Trump being indicted. It was everybody else was interesting.
Right.
They were all just ringing the cowbell. All of those people. You know, when the system is this on both sides too. I mean, doctrinaire Republicans or whatever. When the system is this corrupt, it's not going to attract the best people. The best people. You're going to get the dumbest people who are going to get invested in a system that is so clearly not working.
Yeah, and on the top levels, the people who are willing to invest in that system because they think they can get something out of it, and those are the most transactional people in the world. And generally, the more transactional you are, the less interesting you are.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, it's a combination of the dumb and the transactional. So the only people who are really thinking about solutions are all outside of that system, whatever they identify as politically.
Right, indeed. All right, let's take some super chats before we get on to other business. Roger, I'm going out of order. I'm just showing you this because thank you for alerting me to the Rockfin chats. I noticed you put a couple in there. The couple that you put above that were pretty long, so I went with what I thought was the best point you raised. And thank you for raising that, because I would have never known that a libertarian supported public banking. Courtney said this is perfectly in line with what libertarian actually is. It's just not in line with the biased representation of libertarianism that a lot of people absorb through mainstream media. So I'm obviously open to the fact that I have more to learn on that, but that did jump out at me. And so thank you, Roger, for pointing that out. Much appreciated, my friend, and thank you for the donation. Patrick, thanks for the €5. DeSantis is obsessed with identity politics to distract the plebes from his corporate overlords looting us. People fall for the distraction every time. We do have more on DeSantis. I would agree with that. Yes. And we do have more on Ron DeSantis. Patrick gave us this at 7:30. I'm assuming Patrick is asleep over there in Ireland right now, but thank you for the donation when you watch the replay, my friend. Courtney, thanks for the $5, leaving early, so sending now. Well, thank you, Courtney. Glad to see Larry Sharpe on here. You should host my candidate for governor, Shannon Bray, as well. As I remember, Courtney,
we're sexist, Courtney. You know that.
Shannon could be a man. Are there men named Shannon? I think there are.
I've seen pictures of Courtney. We're friends on Facebook.
No. I'm talking about Shannon Bray.
Oh, Shannon. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Shannon could be.
I wouldn't assume Shannon is a woman. Shannon could be a man. I believe, Courtney, you're in North Carolina, if my memory serves me right. So that would be the gubernatorial candidate down there. Thank you for putting that on our radar. We'll look into it for sure. Abiding 71, 99 cents. Thank you for the donation. Yeah, we're always like this election cycle. We are interested in interviewing third-party people. So if any of you guys know any third-party candidates or things like that might be worth looking into, send them our way, DueDissidence@gmail.com, and we're going to get that news tip email set up.
I was going to remind you today to set that up.
Right now, just DueDissidence@gmail will do, but we will let you know when that's set up. Should be by Sunday. Mike, thanks for the $20. Night off from work. I can catch you live. Hi, guys. Well, hi, Mike. I hope you're enjoying, and thank you very much for the donation, my friend. Kameshwari Kate, thanks for the $7.20. A very good dark movie is Buffalo 66.
I saw that. Isn't
Angelica
that
Houston,
Christina
James Gallo.
Ricci? Isn't that Christina Ricci? Buffalo 66.
Is it? I don't remember. The title does sound familiar.
Swear that's Christina Ricci.
That was one
of Vince. What's his name, man?
The guy you're talking about the guy who got the blowjob.
I was just gonna say. Yeah.
She what's Gallo, but she says
her
James
name?
Gallo.
What's her name?
Chloe Sevigny, right?
Chloe Sevigny. Yeah, she just had a closet sale in New York where she was actually present. So there were like lines around the block 3 times for this thing.
What we're talking about, by the way, for those who didn't get that, is Vincent Gallo made a movie called The Brown Bunny, where he actually got a real on-screen blowjob from Chloe Sevigny.
Sevigny, yeah.
Very controversial.
Yeah.
All right, Franklin.
The recut movie was actually not bad.
I didn't see it.
Like
never caught that one.
It's because he got booed accounts because he released like a 3.5 hour, just pompous version of this. But he did a cut that was an hour 45. That was the one I saw. I didn't see the 3.5. The hour 45 one, it was pretty good actually. He kept the Hummer in. I mean, he knew where his bread was.
Yeah, he knew where his bread was buttered. Right, you can't cut that. Who the hell would pay to see a movie without one of them in it?
Sure.
Franklin Worsham, $9.99. Is Trump a third
That's
party?
why I went to Strange World, the Disney thing.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Is Trump a third party disguised as a Republican? Like what your guest is saying. Good stuff. I'm glad to see the channel's success. Well, thank you, Franklin. I do think Trump is, I wouldn't call him a third party person, but I think he is the closest thing to what, a third party insurgency would look like. Yeah, inside one of the two major parties. As Larry said, he was willing to do the Bernie thing, where it's like, okay, let me keep my identity status as a libertarian, but let me run in the GOP. And then if I win, everybody's happy. And they told him the same thing they told Bernie, which is no. You either buy in or you get the hell out. But thank you, Franklin. Don't forget, Roger Meadows, Valentine's Day is the deadline to register. Deadline to register what? To vote in a primary in New York? I know when you switch parties, it's even before that. It's like September of the previous year. Like if you wanted to...
No. It's total Tammany Hall shit.
Yeah, if you're in New York and you are an independent who, say, wants to register Republican to vote in the GOP primary, you have to do it. If the primary is in May of 2024, you have to register by like October of 2023. When I was canvassing for Bernie in 2016, I remember we were riding around Ridgewood. We parked the car and walked, and I knew he was in trouble because it was a long way between apartments that we had leads that were Bernie apartments, But I ran into not one, not two, but 3 different UPS drivers who saw me walking around in my Bernie shirt and my pin and my, clipboard and stuff. And they gave me the fist pound. I say, hell yeah, And I said, my question to everybody, because it was primary day. It was on the day of the vote that I was out there canvassing last minute. I said, did you vote yet? 3 times I got from 3 different UPS guys, oh, I can't because I'm a registered independent. Right? Because
and that's why they have it set up
October
that way.
of the previous year.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why. No. New York State is really exhibit A of everything the Democrats tell you about who they are is total bullshit. Because when you look at the states where Democrats are actually in control, it's completely corrupt. You have terrible wealth inequality. Like if they really believe in the things they claim to, how do you know a tree by its fruit? Look at the states that are run by Democrats. Do you see people doing really well in those states? Do you see people being taken care of? No.
Right. Exactly. Bennett, my dad. Thank you, Dad, for the $20. Bipartisan means doubly dangerous. Nonpartisanship must become our goal. Yeah, that was another George Carlin line. This one, I don't have an exact memory of the exact quote. A lot of his quotes I know word for word, but he said something to the extent of like, bipartisanship means Democrats and Republicans working together, which means you're about to get fucked really hard. Like when you hear Democrats and Republicans are working together on something, that means get ready because you're about to take it in the ass.
Yeah. Like Ukraine.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. Because that's what they come together for. Ukraine, bank bailouts, right? All that. right? Franklin, thanks for the $4.99. We don't need police if we lose weight and pack heat. Yeah, no, it was an interesting answer that he gave on the defund the police.
I mean,
Russell,
that also would have been very effective against COVID, as it turns out.
Indeed. Well, I don't know about the packing heat part, but the weight loss. Yeah. All righty, so let's go to...
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, there were all kinds of other things I would love to have asked him, like what a libertarian's point of view is on this. But I knew that would have been the show. We would have been here for 2 hours.
We would have been until 1 o'clock in the morning because we obviously have a full slate of topics here that we're going to do now. So let's go to our first headline of the evening here. Russ, I'm going to skip one on the outline. Not skip it, but do it out of order because we just did an extended segment. So I want to do a bit of a quicker one now, but this is an important one. Friend of the show, Collin Radix Carter, went to a Justice Democrats organizing event. I assume this was in Washington, D.C., since that is where Collin is based, and that is where you get a gathering of the squad, as appears in this video. Collin's part of the Indie News Network, which put this up on their Twitter feed, and luckily I came across it just in time for the show. I came across this at like 3 o'clock this afternoon, so I'm glad I caught this in time for this evening, because Collin challenged the squad, specifically Ayanna Pressley, on the question of student debt, and he wanted clarification from them. Did you not send Joe Biden a memo which advised him to use the Higher Education Act of 1965 as legal justification for canceling $20,000 worth of student debt per borrower? And did he blow you off? And is the reason that we're in this bind now where the Supreme Court is almost certain to strike student debt cancellation down, is that not because he did not take your advice? He tried to apply some pressure there. Let's hear what their answer is.
But didn't you give a memo to Biden with Senator Wong regarding student debt to tell him to use the Higher Education Act?
Let me just say this, because I'm gonna get in trouble if I start taking questions from the floor, okay? But I want to say on
first of all, why?
Why? Right.
Why
you know, they say these things like they should just be accepted.
Right, like they should just be accepted. As I understand.
Right. Of course, we don't want you to get in trouble talking to the plebs.
Yeah. And the thing is, this is not just the plebs, because as I understand, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe I remember seeing Collin and one other pal of ours going back and forth in one of the Twitter groups, because I share a lot of Twitter groups with Collin here. I remember, and like I said, if I have this wrong, please do send me a DM when you see this, Collin, and I will correct it. But if I remember correctly, this did cost some money to get into. It's like an organizing, fundraising meeting. So, like, if you're not allowed to take questions from your grassroots donors, then who could you take questions from? Right? Why would you not be allowed?
Collin paid to be at this?
I think they pulled some money. Like I said, I'm not sure I have that correct. I'm pretty sure, though, because I remember seeing a chat go on for this in a while, that they were raising money to get in there so that they can ask a question. Okay. And then they get in there well, we're not really supposed to take questions from the floor. Why? It's not like we ran as grassroots movement candidates or anything who are accountable to the people, so I don't know if we could take questions. But anyway.
We got to pull some Mission Impossible shit, man. We got to pull money to get Jose Vega in there and just put him in like a crazy disguise.
Yeah, right. Yeah, with the Marx Brothers thing.
Get him the nose and the mustache.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that would be a good sort of fundraising drive. All right, let's let them keep going.
Student debt and where that fight stands right now, it is in the Supreme Court. By the way, expand the courts. Reform the courts, expand the courts.
Deflect.
It's not that radical, y'all. There is precedent.
Platitude.
6 times before. It's far right, it's extremist, it's imbalanced, and they are causing great harm.
Okay, so
rile up the crowd against the court.
Right. Rile up the crowd against an unsolvable problem, right? Against a problem that's ultimately unsolvable. Like I said, I'm all for packing the court. I think one way they can do it, I brought this up a couple shows back, use this Clarence Thomas scandal as a vehicle to rile up support for packing the court. And don't sell it as packing the court. Say, listen, Thomas obviously has no business serving on that court. We want to impeach him and replace him with a 9th justice. If the Republicans are not willing to do that, then we will simply appoint a 10th justice to cancel his vote out. That's all. There, you've packed the court, and you've given, I think, a perfectly rational justification for why you're doing it that way. Say, we're not trying to pack the court. We just need Thomas out. If you're not going to kick him off, then we're going to put someone in there to cancel his voice out. And so that's what you could do. But in either case, that's obviously not happening, right? There's obviously no universe in which any time in the next decade we're going to pack the court.
Yeah.
And so that's what they say. Well, pack the court. Pack the court.
Well,
don't pressure him to actually adopt the right legal strategy to get this done.
This is where you still have a little reactionary in you, Keaton. You still talk like someone who's trying to solve things or do stuff. You know, that they're really not interested in that. It's interesting watching how much they've become these creatures. I mean, Ayanna was always kind of on the fence there, but just watching the tactics she's using to avoid the question, bring up a position that will be popular in the room, but as you say, for which they have no actual solutions, and just get people clapping for that. Yeah, we need to put the court. Yeah. And then, I mean, she continues in that vein, as we'll see.
Yeah, indeed. All right, here we go.
That is where the student debt issue is right now. But that being said, we're all organizers, and no organizer goes into a fight without a contingency plan.
Oh, is that what they call it these days?
But I'm not ready to see defeat here.
I thought you were sellouts.
The legal case is sound. The legal case is sound.
And that's a lie.
Yeah, I mean, the legal case is really not sound according to precedent that's been set. I mean, I personally think it's sound. I mean, I personally think you can use emergencies to justify debt cancellation, but that's me. Obviously, if you're going by what this court, right, if you're going by what the high court has, how they have already ruled,
right.
In this context, you can't really say it's sound. According to the high court, and the high court is the high court. You have no appeal above them.
If they did not uphold an eviction moratorium in the face of a pandemic, why on earth would you think that they would think student loan cancellation can be upheld under this statute?
Right. They let the child tax credit expire. They let the eviction moratorium expire. A lot of the other stuff was expired. I don't even know if you can get, like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you could apply for during the pandemic, during the height of that crisis. If you fell in hard times, I don't know how much, if any of that, is still available to people. None of it is available to the point where the government is invested in informing people about it. Right. And this was Joe Biden. Right. This was the Biden White House. This is part of why people thought you would have a saner and more humane response to COVID if you had Biden versus Trump. Not that people were under the illusion that he was going to really transform things, but you thought basic competency, basic bureaucratic liberalism would provide some type of safety net. I'm not saying I bought this, but I think a lot of people generally bought into that idea. And you're not even getting that, right? Like, the government is not even communicating to people at this point that even if you get the virus of unknown origin, as we like to call it here, you can go to the government for help. So why, under those circumstances, do you think that the court is going to rule in your favor? Why?
Well, yes, and the fact that he framed it that way, and she is just completely now kowtowing to the talking points that she's clearly been told by the party leadership that she's supposed to put out. There's no way that she believes that the legal reasoning is sound within the context of bringing it to this court. There's no way she believes that. I mean, now they're just there to sheepdog people who don't want to associate themselves with supporting Biden into the Democratic Party. That's the only purpose they serve now. They're not in any way there to represent progressives, whatever that means at this point.
All right, let's keep going.
Stay tuned on that, because we know that was a motivating issue in the midterms for many.
Yes, it was.
This is a transformational, consequential
right about
issue.
That.
And we're not giving up this fight. So in the fact that we made it this far, first they said the president didn't have the authority. Then they said it would be regressive in impact and only benefit white graduate students who went to affluent schools. And we have challenged and proven all of that wrong. This is a huge coalition of impacted borrowers, civil rights organizations, union workers, presidents, tradesmen and women. But my point is, the progress that has been made is because of the movement.
Okay, that's fair enough if they actually cancel student debt.
Right.
If the court rules against the student debt cancellation,
as is extremely likely.
Exactly. You're saying you have a contingency plan. Well, that contingency plan better be getting people in the streets demanding a redo under the correct legal framework. And are you going to do that? That remains to be seen. Are you going to challenge Joe Biden in an election year to do that?
I'm going to say no for 1,000.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. And believe me, I would love nothing more to be proven wrong about that. Right?
Oh, come
So
on.
I'll just close
They're
by
not
saying
even
this.
trying anymore.
And it is progress. And listen, 60 million people have already benefited from this relief, provided the Supreme Court follows the letter of the law. 1 in 4 black borrowers will have their debt zeroed out completely. This is 40 plus million people that stand to benefit.
All right, we don't have to watch the whole thing. It gets a little bit tedious here. But, they start listing the benefits of student debt cancellation, which none of us disagree with, if it happens. It has to happen. And it's very likely at this point not to happen. And you bamboozled millions of young people into coming out and voting blue in the midterms so that this would stand or not be overturned, or that this, quote unquote progress would be safeguarded in the next Congress. And turns out that progress seems to be illusory, almost certainly, because it's almost certainly going to get struck down. And at that point, what it will take is mass mobilization against Joe Biden and against the Democratic Party to insist that either this is redone, or at that point you have to take it even further and organize a mass boycott or a mass student strike. And we do know for certain the squad is not going to lead.
It's painful for me to watch that answer, because it's just such a bunch of bullshit. It's so transparently dishonest. Like they've all just become such standard politicians. Just watching that answer, it's all tactics. It's all tactics. There's absolutely no attempt to do anything for the people listening. It's just to manipulate them into clapping and say we're for good things and against bad things, and drop a little identity politics in there, because that always works. And that's it. She knows everything she's saying is a lie. She knows that this is almost definitely not going through the Supreme Court, and she probably knows that that's exactly why the Biden administration did it this way, to describe themselves as a movement or movement leaders. It's sickening.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. All right, we're going to move on to our next segment here. Roger gave us another $2 on Rockfin, so I'm just reading this super chat here. We can't put it up on the screen because StreamYard is not integrated with Rockfin. But regarding the primary deadline, he says that's no longer the case, sir. Let New York vote lobbied to change the law, so you now have up until Valentine's Day to register for the first time or change party affiliation for the primary. I did not know that. That's because I don't really vote in party primaries anymore, because I've sort of checked out.
Hang on, when is the primary for New York?
It's probably May or June or something like that, 2024. So he's saying now you have up until Valentine's Day of the same year. He's saying they changed that recently, which I take you at your word. Thank you for letting us know. All right, let's do...
Right, well, maybe I can push Dave Chappelle over the top this time.
Russell, what do you want to do next? You want to do Target, or you want to do Henry Kissinger?
Whatever you want to do, man. You're the MC.
Let's
You're
do
the
Target.
Master of disaster.
Master of disaster. All right, let's do Target, shall we?
Hang on, I have to get my trans onesie for this one.
Yeah, right. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a commercial break, everybody. We're going to do a quick wardrobe change, and Russell will be right back.
I'm gonna, with the hood and everything.
Yeah. All right, so go ahead. Set this up, and we'll play that video first.
Okay, so as you might have heard, some people got a little upset with Target, which did an almost springtime for Hitler-esque kind of a marketing campaign during Pride, meaning if there's anything they could have done to not trigger a backlash, I don't know what it might have been, including hiring somebody who likes to play Satanist to design part of their children's Pride line. So a lot of TikTok videos of parents going into Target started to go viral. This one, I think, went the most viral. It's gotten the most play anyway.
Well, this is the other one because you didn't want to play the other one.
Oh, right. Okay, so this shows some items that are available at Target right now in the kids section.
All right, we'll play this.
A controversy going on about all of the Pride stuff that's coming out with kids' clothes and things like that. So we're going to go to the kids section and we're actually going to see if they're putting weird, creepy, uncomfy stuff on children's clothing.
All right, let's just pause it there. So far, I mean, you want to tell me what's wrong with that t-shirt?
With this one?
Yeah.
I mean, this one, not so much. That was like a lot of the stuff that goes the furthest, weirdly, is not in this video.
Yeah, this is a bit
because look, you got videos. I didn't have time to do a supercut. You got some videos that focus more on the books. You got some videos that focus more on the clothes. You'd almost have to cut them all together.
I mean, is he a flamingo?
There was one back there that was queer on the shirt, which was kind of hard to see.
All right.
But no, I mean, there was one that was kind of in a Roy Lichtenstein style that was dreaming of girls. The books she really didn't capture at all, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. I mean, because this one,
it's like whatever.
Seems fairly benign to me, I think. All right, here we go.
Okay, this is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means.
What was that? What did I say?
We are
it
glad
says
you came out,
proud.
and I'm so happy that you're queer. In the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence. So
all right.
Okay, so
perversion is sick. It's degenerate and sick.
Hey, quiet down. We're doing a show here.
A trans with a Schmendrick swinging it in a girl's bathroom.
Okay. All right. So this is something that was kind of inevitable, and it's something I've been saying for a long time, and it's something that a lot of gay activists have been saying for a long time. Leave the kids the fuck alone, because the amount of backlash that you're eventually going to engender by really pushing this with kids is going to be epic. And now here we are. What did you think the reaction was ultimately going to be when you keep forcing books that I think most reasonable people would argue should not be in a school library? You know how much they shouldn't be in a school library? When we tried to show images from some of the books that are being pushed in school libraries, like genderqueer, the video got demonetized. So if we can't even show it on YouTube without getting demonetized, how do you argue that? Now, among families, that's up to you what you want to do within your own family, as long as it's within the boundaries of the law. But yeah, I mean, you can't be putting this in a place like Target, which is very family oriented, and be surprised when you get a backlash. And when you look at a lot of this stuff, the intention of so much of it is clearly to troll the kind of people who would get triggered by it. Why else would you do this? Why else would you have this kind of trans-themed onesies for infants? Who is that for? Like, you're trying to troll people who would be bothered by it. So you can't really complain when you fuck around and you find out. Like, you pushed something that didn't really belong in that space on people who didn't want it, and they have every right to boycott you. I mean, anybody does, right? I mean, people boycotted Spotify over Joe Rogan, right? I don't think you're wrong to do that. So Target basically came out and said that they pulled a lot of this pride content because of worker safety, which they never produced any evidence of. No videos. You got video cameras all over Target stores. If that were really the case, I am sure those videos would have been released. That had nothing to do with it. This had everything to do with it. They saw what happened to Bud Light. Bud Light stock has completely collapsed this year. I think their sales are down 30%, and every week it's getting worse. Like, basically, Bud Light is over as a brand. Like, I don't think they'll ever really be able to recover. They saw this. They said, But they couldn't do what Bud did. What Bud Light did was they came out and disavowed the Dylan Mulvaney ad. And then they got a boycott from the other side. Then they started getting gay bars boycotting Anheuser-Busch products. Target saw that. They said, oh, no, we can't disavow the campaign. What can we say? So we have an illustration of that. They actually had a meeting before they pulled the products, and what they were talking about was Bud Light, not worker safety. So this was 2 days before they pulled the materials. A Target insider said there were emergency calls on Friday and that some managers and district senior directors were told to tamp down the Pride sections immediately. Quote, we were given 36 hours, told to take all of our Pride stuff, the entire section, and move it into a section that's a third the size. From the front of the store to the back of the store, you can't have anything on mannequins and no large signage, the Target insider said. We call our customers guests. There is outrage on their part. This year, it is just exponentially more than any other year, the Target insider continued. I think given the current situation with Bud Light, the company is terrified of a Bud Light situation. Now, after this, it came out that some of the Pride clothes were designed by the aforementioned trans man who also likes to design satanically themed material, although... So this is the designer. Now, look, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I've seen interviews with him. He says, it's kind of a joke. It's campy. I know a lot of people call themselves Satanists, like the guys who put the satanic statue to combat the attempt to put the 10 Commandments into a public building. They're doing it in a kind of satiric way. A lot of them see Satan as a symbol of personal freedom and so on. But look, you're running Target. Maybe don't hire the guy who's putting out mock Satanist material to design the children's Pride clothing section, because that's playing to everything that the people who are horrified by a lot of this say, that it's you're playing to the worst nightmares of Christian conservatives by doing that. Like, why would you pick this particular person? So the success of the Bud Light boycott kind of predicted that you were going to get a lot more stuff like this, because now you have people with this point of view have found out that they can run an effective boycott. So this is not the last of it you're going to see. And I feel you asked for it, you got it. I mean, this, you put this into children's sections, you shouldn't be surprised that you're going to get this kind of reaction from some parents. And a lot of gay rights activists have been arguing their voices are silenced. They're not promoted in the mainstream media, but a lot of them have said this is going to happen. We've spent so long arguing we're not after your kids. So stop it. Stop it. You don't need to get into this.
So what I would say about this is that I think there is, to me, a higher threshold of offense that is required when you put a piece of clothing in Target versus like the satanic sex show at the Grammy Awards, right? Because like when you put stuff like that into a show, it's a bit of an ambush, because the Grammy Awards it's a water cooler show. It's water cooler talk the next day at the office. Everybody's sort of expected to watch the Grammys or know what happens at the Grammys. And so you go and you watch it, and then they spring that on you, and it feels like they're just kind of shoving it in your face unnecessarily when you don't expect it and it's not what you signed up for. Same thing if, like, you know, my kids are into the Paw Patrol show now, so if they had like some kind of weird sexual theme that they all of a sudden tried to put in there, you would feel a bit ambushed by it because it's something you don't expect and they want to watch the show and they like the show and then they don't understand what they saw in the show. Target, you know, when you put a piece of merchandise on a shelf, the easiest thing to do if you don't like it is to walk to the next section.
I mean, the argument you just made for the Grammys, you could make that triple for parents shopping in the suburbs who walk into a Target and don't expect to see that marketed to their children.
What do you mean?
Especially because you can keep your children from watching the Grammys. I mean, you've been to a Target in the suburbs, right? I mean, very often those people are shopping with their kids.
Yeah, I mean, my kids have seen all kinds of things that are not necessarily appropriate for them. They mostly don't understand it, and if you don't, you know, spend too much time there, they'll forget about it. Like, to me, this seems like sort of the Marianne Williamson version of the Bud Light boycott. It's like it was a very powerful boycott.
Do you want to pull up the stock price?
No, I know the stock price. I just did. I just did. But what I'm saying is, substantively, I mean, look, right now, it's very easy to rile people up about this kind of thing. And look, everybody has a right to boycott something if they want to boycott. That's what makes boycotting very, very powerful, when you can organize it well and execute it well, because there's literally nothing anybody can do to stop you from not buying a product or not patronizing a certain business, right? So ultimately, it's just the market. Like, you know, if they feel strongly about this and they don't want to shop there, then they don't have to shop there. That's fine. But there was the other video, the video that went really viral, was a woman coming in, and there's a little Pride kiosk set up at the front of the store, and they say, I walk in the front door and my kid sees this is indoctrinating children. I'm sorry, a shirt with a rainbow on it is not indoctrinating your child, right? And so I'm all for look, I'm very much against the sort of pushing of any type of agenda on people in an aggressive and off-putting way. And so if people feel that this does that for them, that's fine. Like I said, they have the right to not shop at Target. What am I going to do? Go and insist that people sign up for a Circle Rewards program? Like, you know, I can't do that. It's their right, whatever. If they feel strongly about it. This thing, though, does seem like a bit of a reach. This seems like it is generated in media. I feel like a lot of these women are perhaps, you know, bored housewives who finger themselves to Charlie Kirk, and they decide to go and make a video about, you know, what, a shirt with a rainbow and a bumblebee and a butterfly on it that's indoctrinating kids and stuff like that. Like, I don't see it. With the Bud Light thing, I could see it, because the Bud Light thing, first of all, the Bud Light ad was offensive to a lot of women, because a lot of women don't like the Mulvaney thing with the tee-hee, right? They call it woman face, right? They find it patronizing in a certain way. With this kind of stuff, I mean, like I said, they have the right to do whatever they want. I mean, you can't stop someone from boycotting. This is something I kind of feel is a bit of a shrug.
All right, so you feel, I'm not going to pull it up on the screen, but this is from Reuters. So you feel that books for children aged 2 to 8 titled Bye Bye Binary, Pride 1, 2, 3, and I'm Not a Girl, you feel that's inappropriate to not want your kids to be exposed to that?
No, I think that's fine too.
That was part of what they were selling at Target.
No, right. I'm talking about the clothing line. The clothing line. The books, I mean, that's fine. Like I said, if you feel strong, like I said, what I would do if I saw a book named Bye Bye Binary, I just personally, I mean, I wouldn't buy that book. I wouldn't necessarily want my kid to read that book, because I think those, first of all, those topics, forgetting about the sexual elements or anything, those are just over the heads of 4-year-old kids. Right. I mean, there's no reason to introduce.
I mean, they're recommending it for 2 to 8 year olds.
Right. And like you said off the air, and I think you're right about, I think those kinds of products exist for virtue signaling guilty lib parents more than they do for the kids.
Right. Well, because clearly the kid is not saying, get me the being queer onesie.
Right. No, exactly. No, it's for it's virtue.
Who is that for? It's to show that you bought that and put it on your kid.
Yeah. No. Look, it's virtue signaling on the parents' part. I think it's obnoxious. So yeah, I mean, I would agree with all of that. Would I personally boycott the store over it? No. I'm just saying.
I mean, for me, I
don't shop at Target because their produce is too expensive. So if I have to buy vegetables, I go to Walmart because I can get the shit I need plus the cheap garlic.
I mean, I don't have kids, so I mean, children, small children. so I don't really have a dog in the fight in that way. For me, I look at this and I look at these increasing boycotts, increasingly frequent boycotts. And I say, well, this is what I've been saying for as long as we've had this show, that you cannot keep pulling this shit without generating a massive backlash. And sure, Bud Light and Target are trivial, but it is in such trivial things that you can spot broader trends. And this is what empowers somebody like Ron DeSantis. And for that matter, it's part, not the whole of it, but it's part of what empowers somebody like Donald Trump. Because eventually, if you keep pushing this kind of shit on parents and they feel like they can't protect their kids, and that you and people of your political affiliation are a threat to their family, they're going to turn to somebody who promises to protect them from you. And when you look at the way these things are covered in the media, libs get the impression that there's nothing to see here. And that's partly because they very often cover it very dishonestly. I mean, do you ever see a story in the media about conservatives wanting books taken out of the public libraries that show you the graphic sexual images that are in those books? They don't tell you that. They frame it as this is a backlash against LGBTQ people. Gavin Newsom tweeted out, next they're going to come for women and Asians and blacks. Really? Because they don't want their kids exposed to bye-bye binary at 2 years old. That implies that they're also racist against Asians. Like, what the fuck are you even talking about?
Yeah, no, look, like I said, I mean, there's no argument. Like, there's no political argument. I mean, it's almost not a political issue for that reason. Like, if people feel strongly enough about this that they don't want to shop there, they don't got to shop there. Like, there's nothing anybody can do about that. And if Target feels that the bottom line is being hurt by having this merchandise, available in the store versus online, or front of the store versus back of the store, they're going to make whatever decision they feel they have to make to affect their bottom line. Like there's nothing, there's no policy approach to this on either way. Like you can't dictate people's shopping habits, and you can't dictate where and how Target features their merchandise. So, this is a market question, and the market will answer it. And so, I mean, what else is there to really say? I'm just saying, me personally, I wouldn't boycott the store over it.
I mean, I don't really shop at Target. It just doesn't really come up for me. But what I'm saying is, this is one more example of we on the left who are really focused on getting certain economic policies enacted. We have to stay really, really far away from this shit because it is deeply, deeply unpopular. And the backlash is growing against it. And you're seeing it. And yes, right now, it's Target. Right now, it's Bud Light. But you're going to get such a sweeping cultural backlash against all of this that if you want the left to have any credibility with the general population, we have got to do everything we can to make it clear that we're not with these people. We're not part of this. We're not pushing this. You raise your kids the way you want. We're not trying to put graphic images of oral sex in the public schools. These are other people entirely. These are people who don't even like us. They don't like us. We don't like them. Just keep that clear in the public mind, and do not, for the love of God, jump on board with this shit and connect it to the economic agenda that really, I think, should underlie any left movement that wants to be successful.
All right. Fair enough. All right, let's go on to our next and final headline, and then we have two other main segments that we're going to get to. I want to share some really great news with you all. Julian Assange, it appears, has been released from Belmarsh Prison, and he's having a great welcome home party. And here's the welcome home party for Julian, a lovely bash. It's going to be a beautiful event and banquet and ceremony. And oh, wait a minute, sorry. Oh shit, did I get that wrong? Oh, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. Now I'm going to have to backtrack. Okay, apparently... Oh, fuck. How did I fuck that up? Okay, so this is... All right, I'm sorry to deflate you all and get your hopes up. This is actually the setup at Henry Kissinger's 100th birthday party. That was a big fuck up. I'm really embarrassed about that. How'd I fuck that up?
That's that's. I mean, to be fair,
I mean, you might have to carry the rest of the show, Russell. I don't know how I got that wrong.
That's for all the families of his victims.
Yeah, I guess they needed a.
They've all been invited.
All right, folks. Well, I'll take the L on that. I don't know how I'm going to recover from that one. Oh, here. Okay, I got it. All right. So now it's all coming into a little bit clearer focus here, because this was an article in The Intercept that just came out. Blood on his hands. Survivors of Kissinger's secret war in Cambodia reveal unreported mass killings. This is by a journalist named Nick Terse, who actually interviewed Henry Kissinger himself for this piece. The lack of justice in the world is pretty apparent in that photo that we just saw here. Henry Kissinger personally approved 3,875 bombing raids of Cambodia during the Vietnam War. 110,000 tons of bombs were dropped on that country. The low estimate, I would argue absurdly low estimate, is 150,000 Cambodians dead. The estimates range as high as about 500,000, which I think is much, much closer to the actual number, especially since, according to this new reporting, obviously the damage is even worse than initially reported. But as we all know, it was called Operation Menu. Those were the Cambodia bombings, the B-52 raids. And they were codenamed things like breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner, dessert, and supper. A bombing codenamed snack. Yep. What a beautiful country we are, right? Right? How do you not hope for this country to succeed? How do you not root for this country's success? Anis Shivani, who we interviewed about RFK a little while back, he made such a great point about Trump and Trumpism, and what angers him most about the libs is they traffic in this fake innocence of the American empire. And at a certain point, does it not become the moral thing to actually root for the country's failure, right? How moral is it to root for the country's success? Given that, I mean, listen, we've demagogued, not you and I, but, this country, it's been popular. It's been very acceptable to demagogue against a lot of different countries with a lot of different political systems, a lot of different economic systems, a lot of different governments around the world. Oh, they're murderers, they're madmen, they're tyrants, they're this, they're that. Just read this again. 110,000. This was between 1969 and 1970. This was not even the tip of the iceberg in terms of all the damage done during the Vietnam War. 110,000 tons of explosives dropped on Cambodia, which was an offshoot, obviously, of the Vietnam War. We didn't even want to admit we were involving ourselves in Cambodia at the time. Just like Laos, these were basically covert operations, right? So we're not even talking about the majority of the body count here. But just that alone, this guy personally approved of almost 4,000 bombing raids. Look at the destruction that this man has wrought, that this country has wrought around the world. It really begs the question, how moral is it to root for the success of the country, which is what Anis said, and that's why at the time he was calling Trump the lesser evil to Biden, because he thinks it will accelerate the decline of the empire, which ultimately will be a good thing. And when you see things like this and you're reminded of a guy like Henry Kissinger, who, what kind of moral universe takes David Miranda at 37 and lets Henry Kissinger live to 100 years old? How in this world can you honestly root for us as the supposed good guys? How?
100, not as far as we could tell, not even suffering from dementia.
No, he's still sharp. They interviewed him about foreign policy at the birthday party.
Yep. Still this celebrated senior statesman, Hillary's mentor there, her buddy. Yeah, when we pose as more moral than these other countries, I mean, Henry Kissinger is like Exhibit A. I don't know if you've read Christopher Hitchens's The Trials of Henry Kissinger.
I've read parts of it. I didn't read the whole thing, but I have perused it. Yeah,
it's.
I read the Cambodia chapter actually. Yeah,
it's very good. It's, as you would expect, very damning. Yeah, I mean, Kissinger is a war criminal. I mean, he belongs in The Hague along with Bush and Rice and many other people who are walking around free. This is part of what you're seeing come up with the war in Ukraine, where the rest of the world isn't buying our moral framing of this. And for that matter, a lot of the world didn't buy it with Iraq either, right? I mean, because they are not ensconced in our media propaganda about the United States as this moral actor on the world stage. And you're right, even very often people who think of themselves as liberals buy that shit. A lot of our people have probably seen this. What was that show that was about like a news organization where this monologue went really viral, where the guy's talking about how America used to be great?
Oh yeah, no, I could monologue about this for a while. I'll give you the short version. Yeah, so the show is called The Newsroom, starring Jeff Daniels, written by Aaron Sorkin, who created The West Wing, which the liberals also love. And he goes into this 3-minute monologue about how America is not the greatest country in the world, and the libs' minds were so blown by that. They're like, "This is the most honest 3 minutes of television you'll ever see." I'm like, I could have written you that monologue when I was 16.
Well, but
as soon as the Iraq War started, I could have written you the exact same monologue as a relatively uneducated teenager. Okay? So there's nothing brilliant about that monologue. It's just that you idiots have been sleepwalking your whole lives. And part of the reason, and this is part of the cult of Obama, is that so much of liberalism, modern day, what the libs latch onto now, is they want so desperately to feel proud of their country.
Right.
Despite knowledge, superficial knowledge for most of them, but despite some knowledge of the sins of this country, they are desperate to feel good about it. That's why Obama was so revered, because he's this mixed race guy who never met his father, and he went to Harvard, he climbed the ladder. Like, his story, and we got into this with Norm Finkelstein a bit, his story was worth celebrating because it affirmed their faith in the system that they couldn't help but question up until that time.
Well,
and that's why they've only become more insufferable since he was elected.
Well, and if you look at that monologue, the way he frames it is, when we've become so afraid, but we didn't used to be. We used to do great things. And the period that he's talking about is the same period where Henry Kissinger is bombing Cambodia.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, we did go to the moon at the same exact time that we were committing a genocide in Cambodia. Anthony Bourdain said, once you've been to Cambodia, you'll never stop wanting to beat Henry Kissinger to death with your bare hands.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, even that framing, even as it acknowledges we've lost something, it still preserves the American myth, right? That, God, we just have to get back on track to be great like we used to be. I mean, yes, there were these great technological accomplishments at whose expense?
Right, of course. Of course. And speaking of Kissinger still being mentally sharp, here's from the end of this article, because like I said, Nick Terse interviewed him for this piece. This was a long time ago. He'd been working on this piece for a long time. Quote, "To spare you is no profit, to destroy you no loss," was the cold credo of the Khmer Rouge, but it could just as easily have been Kissinger's. Sorry, the logo's in the way there. In 2010, I followed up with him, pressing him on the contradiction in his claims about only bombing, quote, North Vietnamese in Cambodia, but somehow killing 50,000 Cambodians. By his count, in the process. Quote, "We weren't running around the country bombing Cambodians," he told me. "The evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates otherwise, and I told him so." "Oh, come on," Kissinger explained. Now, this was 13 years ago, so what was he, 87 at the time? "Oh, come on. protesting that I was merely trying to catch him in a lie. When pressed about the substance of the question that Cambodians were bombed and killed, Kissinger became visibly angry. "What are you trying to prove?" he growled. And then when I refused to give up, he cut me off. "Play with it," he told me. "Have a good time." Gave him a little sarcasm. So there you go. Not a man who is sacked and reflected. I thought of that sound drop and I'm like, oh man, it's a pity we haven't gotten to use that on Henry Kissinger yet. But there you go. No remorse.
That's only the second time we've used that one. We only reserve that one for the worst people on earth.
Exactly.
And Henry Kitt will definitely be playing it when he finally fucking dies. Jesus.
We weren't running around the country bombing Cambodians, he told me. Wow.
Ah, come on. Cambodians.
Yeah. All right. So that's that segment, folks. Now we have two more to go here. Before we do that, we want to remind you all, if you'd like to support this program, you can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence. The Patreon members and paid Substack subscribers, you guys are the backbone of the show, along with our YouTube members. So you can also click that join button next to the subscribe button underneath the screen and help support this project through YouTube. We had our first ever members-only live stream this past Tuesday. It was a lot of fun. We had a nice crowd in there, and so we are going to be doing that twice a month moving forward for our Patreon members and paid Substack subscribers. The YouTube perks are a bit different. They are separate. They just mostly relate to the chat and the sort of in-YouTube experience. The Patreon and Substack exclusive streams, those are over on Rumble. Part of the reason we do that is because we cover stuff on those exclusive streams that we might not be allowed to cover here on the main YouTube channel. And so it's a great way to get a little bit more of an uncensored and unfiltered look at the show and build our community and help us add content and material, which we're always trying to do. We are looking to add very soon a third stream to the weekly schedule. So right now we are on Sundays and Thursdays. We are looking to add probably a Tuesday night stream, possibly a Wednesday night. We might shuffle the schedule around sometime in July or so, but we are looking to add a third stream as quickly as we can, and the more help we get from our members, the easier it is for us to do that, and the quicker we'll be able to implement that. Russell, you were laughing at something. Somebody make a good joke in the chat.
We got an anti-Semite here.
Oh, okay,
yeah. Weird how the most warmongering officials of every administration of the last 60 years have been and still are Jews.
Yeah.
Yes, well, we get around like Dick Cheney. Nobody knows he's one of the chosen people.
Yeah, Dick Cheney. Speaking of, we're going to hear from Dick Cheney a little
Jake
bit later.
Sullivan, he's also one
Jake
of
Sullivan.
our people. Don't be fooled by the Irish name. He's really one of us.
Yeah. There's blame to go around in that department, I think for sure. But these are our patrons and Substack subscribers who get you on the member scroll there. YouTube members are also on the supporter scroll. So thank you guys very, very much for doing that. That's very, very kind of you. Let's take a couple super chats here. Isn't it okay to tell kids to be queer? Yes, no, I think it is. Which is why, like I said, I don't take offense at the shirts for the most part. I mean, it depends. Like, there's a difference between putting a rainbow flag on a shirt and pride on a shirt, and if there's something like explicitly sexual on the shirt. Like, for example, this isn't in Target, but we did a really funny segment about this a couple years ago with our friend James Nagy when it came out. If you remember, what was it? It was Postmates. That's what it was. I couldn't remember what the brand was. It was Postmates for Pride Month put out this crazy ad where they were advertising the bottom-friendly menu for gay partners, saying, like, if you're preparing to, get intimate that night, you want a bottom-friendly menu because otherwise things... This was with the Postmates ad. And it was this really suggestive ad that not only was just, like, very sexual and sort of scatological in nature, but also really portrayed the LGBTQ community as sort of obsessed with kink, which is a stereotype that I have not found to be true at all. Both Russell and I were theater people in New York. We've met hundreds, thousands of LGBTQ people.
If anything, a lot of the people I knew who were gay, it was a little fraught for them. Like a lot of them didn't have a lot of sex, it seemed like.
Well, most of them,
not all of them, but a lot of them. A lot of gay people I knew had less sex than the straight people I knew.
I mean, I didn't get that involved in their daily schedules or interactions and stuff like that, but I knew, vast majority of gay guys who I knew, they were basically like me with better ironed shirts. They were me with tighter fitting outfits and better tasting in clothes. Like that was it. Basically just like me.
All right, so this is my answer, Frank. I wouldn't feel particularly good about having a section in the store that said hetero baby on the way, right? Like there's no reason to be laying this kind of sexuality on children. I saw somebody the other day posted a meme saying the same people who are okay with this and was showing like, sexualized children in beauty pageants have a problem with this. And it was showing drag kids. And I said to the person, you could easily flip this because a lot of the people who are okay with kids dressing, in drag and dancing suggestively are the same people who would have criticized hetero sexually oriented beauty pageants for children. I don't think we should be sexualizing children, period. How about that? And when you slap a pride flag on it, it doesn't all of a sudden make it okay. So what I actually think is going on here is what we've talked about in the past when we've talked about this. Our overlords want us arguing about trans onesies at Target. And I also think you have a lot of people that made a lot of money off certain movements. And once things were much more widely accepted, they weren't just going to fold up their tent and go home. They needed to keep making money. And they've been making money off opposition to what they're pushing, right? So once people have accepted everything reasonable, right? We're going to accept gay people. We're going to not discriminate against them. We're going to have gay marriage. And once that becomes a popular position, which it had become, well, how do you keep raising money? How do you keep creating these situations where you could talk about how you're being discriminated against and how these evil bigots are going against you? You have to keep pushing the envelope. You have to keep trolling the public. You have to keep finding sore points so that you can keep raising money off it. And then you have a clickbait seeking media that loves that tension. And it's all just one big clusterfuck. Like it got to a point that LGBTQ rights got so accepted that to find an area where you could provoke people like this, you'd have to start going after the kids because that's the final boundary where people are going to go enough, right? And a lot of people are sending out their emails and making a lot of money off the outrage that they themselves have inspired. I think that's a lot of what's happening here.
All right. I mean, this is a kind of not a related question, but I think that your answer more or less answers this question as well. Is it me or are leftists becoming more socially conservative? I think what's happening is that a lot of resistance is being mounted to a lot of sort of establishment, left of center cultural signaling coming from corporate centers, right? And now some of that is right wing, like sure, like DeSantis, who we're going to cover in the next segment, makes a huge issue out of all of that. But I think on the left, you're seeing resistance to it because I think people are seeing on the left that it is not worth picking certain fights. And by picking fights, I don't mean it's not worth fighting for gay rights or trans rights or anything like that. But when it comes to this level of aggressive signaling, aggressive pushing of topics that, even take the LGBT thing out of it, just talking about sexual messaging to kids. Like my kids are 3 or 4 years old, right? And like my wife and I feel kind of the same way about this. Like every once in a while, because my kids, they take after me. They're handsome kids, right? So they, so every once in a while, somebody will come up to them and say, oh man, you guys are going to be so popular with the girls, and we're like, oh come on, like They're 3. Like, you know, like what? like they're gonna have plenty of time to think about girls, right? Like,
right.
Could we let them be 3 while they're
exactly?
3? Do we have to project that onto them right now?
That's what I'm saying. Slapping a pride flag on it doesn't all of a sudden make it okay, right? Because you're seeing this double standard. Where is there anybody arguing that children should be allowed in the Hustler Club? Well, so why are you arguing that they should be at sexually suggestive drag shows? Once you make it rainbow colored, that doesn't all of a sudden change the whole meaning of it or change the problem with exposing children to sexual ideas, sexual themes, and sexual images that they are simply too young to understand or process.
Right, indeed. Extra Bulla, not a super chat, but funny. Clear Onesie was the name of my 4chan. Thank you, Bulla. Janice Anderson, when Kissinger dies, you should play the "You Were an Asshole" line from Green Day's "Ha Ha, You're Dead." I haven't heard that one. I haven't heard that song.
Yeah, I don't know
I don't know that one. I know a little Green Day from when I was younger, but I haven't heard that one. Tara Braid, he's the guy who you called an anti-Semite for that comment, rightly so, I think.
And now he's doubling down.
Well, thanks for posting. The generalization about they who populate the cabinets of most administrations proves the validity of my statement. Well, 2 Jews that we are will never turn down your $5. So if you'd like to donate some more super chats, if there's one thing you know about our kind is that we'll always take it.
I mean, look, it took. I admire your intelligence and your insight because we spent decades planting Cheney, and for you to realize he was actually a Jew, you're a sharp cookie. And one sharp cookie.
Let me tell you one more thing. You know how difficult it is to get a Jew to move to Wyoming? We had to push this guy. He put up such a fight about that. Is it Wyoming?
Where am I going to get a good pastrami?
Give me Kansas City, at least. Kansas City. No, it's got to be Wyoming. They'll see right through you if it's Kansas City. Yeah. You got to go to Wyoming. He was not happy about that. That's why we had to pay him so well. That's where the Halliburton contracts came because he's not going to move to Kansas. He's not going to move to fucking Wyoming for
we had to ship the bagels from New York. It's not cheap.
Dan Richmond, the Uniparty blob wants to avoid any change to status quo on wages, healthcare, war. Hence, they get us to argue about culture war nonsense, and it works.
You're right.
Thank you, Dan. And you're right.
Why would this have gotten as far as it has when so much of it is so clearly fucking insane?
Right.
It's really, to me, it's a litmus. It's a fascinating study in how far you can go in telling people to believe things that completely violate the values that we all had 10 minutes ago. But if you tell them that it's the virtuous thing to believe, like how far can you push that? Like we've pushed it into areas we would have called pedophilia not very long ago. Like how far can you go? How far can you go? Like what books are they going to release that would be too much? Cocksucking for kids? Is that going to be the line? Or is it not going to be the line? Is that not going to be a line? Are they going to say, this is terrible? The MAGA people are against it. And as long as they say that, are you going to be for it? Because that seems to be how it works. As long as it triggers people that are defined as your cultural inferiors, then you're for it.
Right.
So where does that stop? Where's the line? Is there a line? We don't seem to have found one yet.
No, that makes sense. Black Freud, thank you for the $5. Sexualizing kids is commodifying them. It's all about the Benjamins. Yes, I think
you're right.
Truth to that.
You're right.
Absolutely. All about money at the end of the day. Roger, thank you, Roger. Thoughts on investigating New York State Constitution that you asked in Rockfin. Yes, you've been very generous over there in Rockfin. I thank you. And thank you to our Rockfin audience. We got some people watching in Rockfin. Follow us on Rumble and Rockfin, folks, if you're into those alternative platforms. But you asked, this was a question that you asked when we had Larry Sharpe on. You said, if all power comes from the people, why does New York limit the people's powers by not allowing ballot initiatives? It also garner more votes by stating this action is based in the New York Constitution. And as New Yorkers, can we investigate this further? Yeah, I think that's absolutely worthwhile. I think ballot, initiatives and referendums are a great way to engage democratically without necessarily voting for individuals or parties that you're afraid will not deliver the same sort of results that an immediate ballot referendum would. And so that's definitely worth looking into. And I know, Roger, you're a fan of Mr. Sharpe's, as are we. I mean, I didn't know him all that well. I knew a little bit about him, obviously, when we prior to that interview, but I could tell from doing that interview we could have talked to Larry all night, and so I would like to have him on again and perhaps give him his own evening, because there's obviously just so much there we could have talked about, and we're going to be on Larry's show next week. We'll post the dates for that when it's up. But thank you, Roger. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Ron DeSantis. As we know, Ron DeSantis' launch yesterday on Twitter Spaces got off to a rocky start. Now, in case you missed it, this is kind of how it went down. We took a 2-minute and 20-second clip from our stream covering the event and posted that to Twitter. So in case you were not with us yesterday and you want a little bit of background into how that Twitter Spaces launch went, we're going to be perhaps self-indulgent to a fault and play a clip of ourselves reacting in real time. This is only 2 minutes, so we'll put this up and we'll see you guys in 2 minutes and 22 seconds.
Welcome you to this historic Twitter Spaces event, and more broadly, a first in the history
Is everybody
of social
hearing
media.
that?
Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce two individuals who've done more to loosen the.
Now we're not.
I didn't touch nothing. It's on him. It's on him. It just cut out.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
They're glitching? They're glitching already?
Serves him right. This, I got to tell you, this Ron DeSantis, I don't like this guy. I don't like this guy.
It was a disaster.
It was a disaster.
The
they couldn't get it working.
He didn't even get to speak.
All right, sorry about that.
Now they're back.
We've
Sorry
got
about
so many
that.
people here that I think we are kind of melting the servers.
Oh, that's
which
a
is
great.
good sign.
Oh, that's.
All right, I'd
Who'd
like
have
to
thought
just
people would
introduce
listen to this?
The folks in the room here. So it's safe.
Turns
to say
out we got a
we'd
big
be
crowd
making
here.
history
Can the
without
server
man
handle
next to
this?
me, Elon Musk decision to purchase this platform last year to restore to its original
Come to
mission
Truth
as
Social.
it
We have
became
the best
free speech,
servers. The best
and even to
servers. We
expose
can
Twitter's
handle
past
anything.
complicity with the government
Supposedly he's
censorship
coming
regime.
back to Twitter.
Might have surprised many, but
He
not
should come
those
back
of us
right
who've known
now.
and worked with
Donald
Elon
Trump
for
should start
nearly a
tweeting
quarter
right
century.
now.
We're not surprised
Freedom
at
and
all.
willingness to put his money where his mouth is, upset the narrative control imposed on us by our government, elite institutions, and
Yeah, but it's
corporate
because
media.
Ron the sucker
Go
ass
ahead and
bitch
send
doesn't know how to
a
work
hard
his
up if you
phone.
wanna
He
say
just
thank you to
entered
the
and he
boss.
didn't turn his echo off.
Governor DeSantis first drew my attention and support when I saw how he responded to the COVID pandemic and refused to believe what we now know to be the many falsehoods that government experts and their media mouthpieces were feeding us. He kept Florida's schools open and its economy thriving, while my state of California chose 2 years of learning loss and lockdowns that we have yet to fully.
They cut out.
Oh,
again.
you're kidding.
Wow, what a joke.
So, as I said, Donald Trump is going to be your next president.
Yeah, right, exactly.
As I've been saying all along.
Russell's predictions are in shambles now, as our friend Nick Cruz would say at RBN. Russell's in shambles now.
That's it.
They're going to not have this?
I have never denied that I am deeply unserious.
All right. There you go. So that was yesterday, folks, on our special coverage of the Ron DeSantis Elon Musk campaign launch. Now, after they got the text straightened out, which they really didn't get the text straightened out, what they had to do was forfeit more than half of their viewers. What they did was, because Elon's Spaces was overcrowded with almost 700,000 listeners, they had to switch to David Sachs' feed through his Twitter handle, which has obviously much, much fewer followers. And so that got about 300,000 listeners. So they were able to fix the problem by basically axing half of the audience. But once they got the interview off the ground, the interview was really a mix of Elon Musk ass-kissing by the different callers who called in to not only blow smoke up Ron DeSantis' ass with the sort of culture war softball questions that he's known for, but also, praising Elon Musk for having the courage to buy the social media platform. The whole thing was quite poorly done. But after
it was the Boston teabagging party.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the Boston
everyone
party.
was teabagging Elon on that call.
Yeah,
I mean, it was embarrassing because it's supposed to be Ron DeSantis's night. And everybody who calls in is like, Elon, look, I've got a hotel right up the road. Room 369.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I'll leave the door open.
You're so brave for having done this. It really is just amazing. Yeah, no, I mean, and meanwhile, you have the candidate there. This is supposed to be about him and all of this Elon ass kissing going on. So as the conversation got started, Ron DeSantis launched into an opening monologue. The opening monologue we didn't get to hear because we didn't figure out that they switched feeds. They switched from Elon's handle to David Sack's handle. So we missed the beginning. But I went back and watched it, and it was DeSantis reciting clearly off a script, almost word for word, the text of his first official campaign ad, which he put out later that night. Let's take a look at this. This is about a minute and change.
Our border is a disaster. Crime infests our cities. The federal government makes it harder for families to make ends meet, and the president flounders. But decline is a choice. Success is attainable, and freedom is worth fighting for. Righting the ship requires restoring sanity to our society, normalcy to our communities, and integrity to our institutions. Truth must be our foundation, and common sense can no longer be an uncommon virtue. In Florida, we proved that it can be done. We chose facts over fear, education over indoctrination, law and order over rioting and disorder. We held the line when freedom hung in the balance. We showed that we can and must revitalize America. We need the courage to lead and the strength to win. I'm Ron DeSantis, and I'm running for president to lead our great American comeback.
All right, so that was the ad. And like I said, that was pretty much word for word what his opening monologue was in that conversation, foregoing a lot of the production value of the Joe Biden ad with the quick cuts and the visual montages to just take a more straightforward approach, just him looking into the camera. Not a terribly well done ad, but not a terrible ad either. I mean, it was pretty straightforward. It was a monologue. Yeah, I mean that was fine in terms of what he wanted to communicate there. One of the things that I've noticed, and obviously we wouldn't be talking about this in terms of the ad, but he doesn't really call out Donald Trump by name, which he's going to have to start getting comfortable doing, obviously, now that he is a candidate in the race. Like, he's made these sort of oblique references to Trump, sort of branded him a loser, basically saying, the Republican Party has adopted a culture of losing and things like that. Meanwhile, Trump just goes right at him every chance he's gotten. He's already given him 2 or 3 nicknames and things like that. So we haven't seen the gloves come off just yet. Obviously, the campaign is young.
He should really go with Deep State Ron.
Yeah, Deep State Ron is a good one. I think that one is actually a good nickname because that's his weak spot. That's his weak spot, as we're about to demonstrate right now. I'll go right to this video because that's a good segue. So after the Twitter conversation, he appeared on Fox News with Trey Gowdy, who I guess is this week's fill-in for Tucker Carlson in the 8 o'clock time slot. And he was asked about the war in Ukraine, and he gives a very, very Ron DeSantis answer, pivoting immediately to his culture war sort of comfort zone. So let's hear this.
You wore the uniform. If you are elected president, you may be the first one in a while to have worn the uniform. How would you address the ongoing war in Eastern Europe between Russia and Ukraine on day one of a Ron DeSantis presidency?
Well, first, I think what we need to do as a veteran is recognize that our military has become politicized. You talk about gender ideology. You talk about things like global warming that they're somehow concerned, and that's not the military that I served in. We need to return our military to focusing on commitment, focusing on the core values and the core mission. That would be something that I could take care of on day one. There'll be a new...
Okay, so right there, going to gender ideology immediately. Again, this is a strategy that I predict will win him some gains in the short term, but will have definitely diminishing returns over time. He's going to have to get much better versed in the substance of these questions rather than, well, I'll tell you about the war in Ukraine. We have too many trans people in the military. Like, come on. Like people know this is your beat. This is your thing. But, like, I don't know that you can win a national election on this or even a national primary. I think you're going to have to get more into the analog sort of meat and potatoes reality-based issues like World War III. And as you can see when we play the rest of this, he gives an answer that's obviously not very thought out at all at the end of this.
At the end of it. Yeah. At the end of the clip. Yeah, I agree. He's introducing himself right now. And again, I think people are underestimating him a lot. And when you watch that campaign ad, I think part of what people are not accounting for, they're assuming, and I don't know why they're assuming this. People are always fighting the last war. They're assuming that people want the kind of crazy that comes with Donald Trump. That they're not, after 4 years of Donald Trump and then 4 years of the Pepperidge Farm guy with Alzheimer's, that they're not going to pick something that looks relatively normal. I don't agree. I think as long as Ron DeSantis can credibly present himself as a competent executive who's going to be like a normal president, I think that's going to look pretty fucking good to people after the last 8 years.
Okay, but I mean, with regards to the ad, I think that is fair enough. With regards to this answer, I think going right.
You're
to
right. He's going to have. I think he's trying to introduce himself. Like, look, we live in this space, right? It's always surprising for people who are really into politics when they poll people and ask them who they know and what they know about them, and they don't know shit.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So we're assuming, well, everybody already knows this about him. People like us know all this. He's introducing himself. And look, what he's saying about military recruitment here, he's not fucking wrong. When you look at the ad that they put out of the, and the conservatives go crazy about this, but I'm just talking about it on a strategic level. Where they did the cartoon of the girl with the two moms in Santa Monica. Oh, yeah, no, that's totally the profile of all the people I've ever known who joined the military. They were people with two moms from Santa Monica. Like, who the fuck is that for? You're not going to recruit those people. They're not joining the military. They're filling out their applications to Stanford. You're the people that will join the military, you're alienating them with those ads. And he is not wrong that this is part of why military recruitment has collapsed. I think there are other things. Americans are fat. They're unhealthy. There aren't as many people who can actually pass the physical exams. I think that's all part of it.
I mean,
but I also think rebranding the military like that has not helped.
I don't think it's hurt nearly as much as people are starting to understand that when they join the military, there's a very good chance they'll get their arms and legs blown off for nothing. I mean, the squandering of the post 9/11 sort of goodwill on these wars of choice that have done no good anywhere in the world and have just wrought horrific harm on those who fought them, even the ones who came back. Right, just in terms of the psychological scars and the debilitating injuries. Like,
did they have but after Vietnam, did they have a problem with recruitment? I mean, maybe they did. I would like to know. But I've never heard of the military having trouble meeting its targets like this until now.
Well, I think
there was a very dim view of the military and what the military would ask you to do after Vietnam.
There was still a Cold War. There was still a mission. There was still an ethos. We still had an ethos. We still had a project, right?
Say what you will about National Socialism.
Right. At least it's an ethos, right? What's his name? Terror Break will like that one. Yeah. but yeah, look, there was still a reason for America to project its strength and build its arsenal. I think the country has just become so depressed by this point. I think that's the biggest reason for it. But, look, this is his beat. This is his thing. This is his lane. So he pumps that immediately, but I mean,
I don't know. I would love to see a study on that. I really would, because you know you have these.
I would welcome it.
You have these families. No. I mean, you could be right, but you have these families where it's like intergenerational joining of the military.
Mm-hmm.
And don't you think a lot of those families are looking at ads like that and going, "Fuck this shit. We're not going to join the military." Like, you don't think they feel a little alienated by some of that?
Very little. I think it's very little of that. I think it's a lot more that the country is just in this sort of existential malaise. And they don't really feel like there's anything to fight for anymore. I think the country is just a fat, bloated old man that's, on its last legs. And, that's a very depressing thought. That doesn't inspire people to want to sign up and fight. And I do think the post 9/11 misadventures in the Middle East, to no good end whatsoever, did not help. Did not help, because don't forget, when you're absolutely right. For a lot of these people, it is a generational passing down to join. And, if your uncle's, rolling around with no legs now because he lost them in Iraq, I mean, why the fuck would you join the military?
I'm just saying that was always the case. But before it was Vietnam, it was. Look, I would say
but
this.
I'm saying even in the decades after Vietnam, you still had the Berlin Wall, right? You still had, this sense of conflict. You still had this sense of American purpose in the world, that they were fighting a battle for their own way of life that had to be won. I don't think you can really feel that way now.
I mean, the attitudes towards the military and what the government would ask you to do in the military, I don't know if they've ever been worse than they were right after Vietnam. I think you're right that there's an element of malaise to it. But I mean, the Carter years were kind of defined by their malaise, right? And hey, look, we don't know. Like, I would like to know. Maybe there was a big dip. Maybe they had, I don't know that. Maybe they did have trouble meeting their numbers in the 70s and early 80s. I don't actually know. I think you're probably right. I think there's an element of that. I don't think it's helped that they've tried to attract people to the military that characteristically are not going to join the military at the expense, perhaps, of people who would normally join the military. And I also think it's that we're a nation of fat fucks. I think it's partly that too. We've never been as fat as we are now. No, really. I mean, these people can't, they're going to go jogging 2 miles in the morning. Americans, I mean, we're out of people who are physically capable of being in the military.
All right, let's keep going with Ron's answer on Ukraine.
In town as commander-in-chief, and I think you'll see recruiting start to get back to where it needs to be, because people don't want to join a woke military, and I think it's been really, really problematic. Look, in terms of what's going on over in Eastern Europe, I'd like to see a settlement of this. I do not want to see a wider war. I think it's completely unknowable what it will look like in January of 2025, but I would not want to see the United States with our troops get enmeshed in a war in Russia or in Ukraine.
All right, well, that's obviously a very subpar answer, because that's actually the answer that Biden gives, which is, no, we don't want our troops there, or we want to see it settled in some way. But the Ukrainians have a right to defend themselves, so let's keep pumping money in. And if it happens to turn into World War III, well, that's a battle we'll have to fight at that point. So obviously, he's going to have to do a whole lot better than that on that answer there. That's not at all satisfactory. And I think, don't forget, if this is still an issue in 2024, which it may very well not be, folks. And I don't mean it's going to be wrapped up with a ribbon and a bow and everybody's going to go home happy. I mean, it might escalate beyond the point where it really even matters who our president is, right? Like, this might get out of control by then, to the point where this isn't an issue. But as long as this is an issue of, hey, do we keep pouring gas on this fire? Do we not? I think it's going to be a much more important issue in 2024 than it is now, simply because we're going to be a year and a half down the road, and the stakes are going to be that much higher. And so he is absolutely going to have to come up with a better answer on that, because the Republican base wants nothing to do with this war. They don't just not want our troops there. They want it over. They want it settled. They want peace. So he's going to have to do much better than that. And, I think one of the lessons of the midterms is that for all the culture war stuff, as much as the culture war stuff is good for the base, and it's good for fundraising, and it's good for generating headlines, and it's good for clout chasing, what won the day in 2022 was the social issue that was less defined with woke cultural signaling and more attached to lived day-to-day reality, which was the Roe v. Wade overturn. And so when majorities of people go and vote, we need a less woke military that's less obsessed with gender ideology, I'm sorry, I don't think that's gonna fly with a majority of people. I think a majority of people are gonna want you to do a lot better on that. And Trump's answer doesn't matter to me who wins. I don't think about it that way. I think in terms of stopping the death, stopping the dying, that is an answer that much better appeals to majorities of people than this.
I agree. Yeah. And really, he knows he's going to get asked this, and he's got to know it's a vulnerability. So like I feel like he just launched. He can get away with a little flexibility right now, but he doesn't have a lot of time to come up with a better answer on Ukraine and also abortion. Trump's not in office right now.
Right. Trump's not accountable for the anti-abortion laws that
he is.
Passed. He is. Yeah.
He is. So that's going to be, I think that's the biggest albatross hanging around his neck, because he's between a rock and a hard place. Anybody running in the Republican primary is to take a position that's going to satisfy the Christian wackos that at the same time is not going to make it impossible to win a general election. Good luck.
Right. All right, here we go. Let's so that was that ad there. We also wanted to play this. This was really great. So speaking of Trump, after this whole event happened, after the whole Twitter Spaces debacle, Trump posted a parody video of the Spaces event to his Instagram. Now, this was apparently created using AI, and we've talked about in our segment on the Hollywood writer strike how AI can't replace the best writers, but it can probably replace the median quality writer in Hollywood, because this, I think, is certainly funnier and more clever than too many of the people on Trump's team could have come up with. So this was actually
remind me. There's some interesting rumors about why this strike is happening, but we'll get back to it.
Oh, okay, cool.
I don't want to bust up the segment.
All right, cool. All right, so this was a video that Donald Trump posted. This was a parody of the exchange featuring Dick Cheney, Adolf Hitler, the devil, the FBI, George Soros, and Klaus Schwab, and obviously the two main moderators, Elon Musk and Ron DeSantis. Let's take a look and have a laugh at this.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Ron DeSantis Twitter space.
Hello? Is my microphone working correctly?
George, can you just wait while we...
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can all hear you, George. Can you just hold on for a second?
Hilfa, I don't think they can hear me.
I can hear you fine, George. Just speak to the
I don't think George knows how to use Twitter.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Can I please make my big announcement now? Everyone just...
Hello?
Just shut up, George.
Can somebody just mute George?
Dick, could you try not to cough on the...
Okay, so how are we going to take out Trump, you guys?
Guys from the FBI, this is not a private call. This is a public Twitter space. Everyone can listen in.
God damn it.
Anyway, guys, we invited everyone to this Twitter space so Governor Ron DeSantis could...
Everyone just shut the hell up so I can make my announcement, okay?
You go, girl.
Wait, the devil is gay?
So what? Everyone in this call is gay. I happen to know every single one of you has a secret gay lover hidden in your closet.
Ich kann nicht zulassen, dass die Soldaten, die für Sie
Guys, can we please just calm down?
So anyway, guys, I just wanted to announce that I'm...
Okay, I can hear the governor very well.
Shut up,
Would you please shut up already? I'm running for fucking president, okay?
Yeah, we kind of already knew about it.
Know, Governor.
Congratulations, Governor.
All right, and then actually Donald Trump comes on into that call, but if you notice, none of the YouTube channels are playing that because it features "Hold On, I'm Coming," which is a copyrighted music track, and we don't want to give all of our ad money to whatever it is, BMI or ASCAP, who owns that track.
Motherfuckers.
They'll come in and take it
okay, so I want to know, like, what does it mean that AI did this? Because the Hitler track I recognize because I have my video that I did of the meme from Downfall. That's what that's taken from. That Hitler thing. I don't know. I don't know.
Interesting.
Like, it seems a little too thought out to be purely AI. And the fact that that was taken from the Hitler meme, it seems to me that maybe they had the AI do some, but then they put it together.
Right. Could have been a hybrid. It could have been a hybrid.
Yeah.
But yeah,
like
it was
assisted by AI.
The reintroduction of George Soros being like, I can hear you now, Governor. That was great, because you're like, okay, how are they going to interrupt him again? And it comes back to that. Would you shut up, George? Yeah, no, it was good. And it was good. And that's the kind of subversive humor. And, the fact that Trump put that out, I think is a good sign. But look, so much of Trump's appeal is just that anti-PC sense of humor that he has, right?
Yeah.
Like just a very sort of fly in the face of the the trends of the day, like the devil saying everyone in this call is gay. It's just a great thing for him to blurt out, because the devil might know that, because the devil has a sort of psychic power, just as God has. So yeah, no, that was well done. That was well done. So that was the Ron DeSantis launch. He's got some ground to make up. I think it was certainly not the ideal launch to a campaign.
Look, I mean, I think a lot of people are looking at who's more charismatic. I mean, of course, Donald Trump. Who's more fun to watch? Of course, Donald Trump. In the end, people have been through a lot of fucking shit. Are they really going to vote for another term of Donald Trump? I think they will if the other choice is Biden. But I think between Trump and DeSantis, competent normalcy is going to look pretty good to people after what we've been through. So we'll see.
We will see. We will see. Like I said, I have my doubts. Sorry, Roger, I put that up already, but thank you. I got one more segment that we're very excited about. We're going to do some of these first. Justin B., thank you. I enjoyed talking with you both on the Patreon chat on Tuesday. We enjoyed talking with you as well. Glad you figured the rumble out okay. Once you got that straightened out, it was great talking to you. If the other dissidents are on the fence about becoming Patreon members, get on board. Well, thank you for that endorsement, my friend. We appreciate a testimonial. We actually did have a couple people sign up over the course of this stream. I haven't added you to the scroll yet because you just joined, but Ryan Wood, you're on here all the time. Ryan became a patron. That's awesome. And Scott became a patron while we were on. So thank you guys both.
Thank you
very, very much. We do appreciate that. And actually, Kiwi was in the studio earlier as a caller. He didn't turn his mic on, but he did he did give us a little chat message here in the private chat. Oh, this is regarding all of the gay guys that Russell said didn't get laid as much as some of the straight guys. He says, Russell, you knew how lousy their sex lives were and didn't help a brother out. What kind of friend are you?
There wasn't much I could have done for them.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be wingman. It's hard when you're a straight guy to be a gay guy's wingman. I feel like gay guys could be a great wingman to a straight guy, because gay guys could charm they could charm the girls and then pass them right off to the straight guy, right? But it's hard for a straight guy to be a wingman for a gay guy.
Yeah, it's look, I don't know what they did in their private lives, but they never had like a boyfriend. That's what I'm saying. Like, they never really had a boyfriend. Although I will say, like, the gay friends that I had, most of them are in relationships now. So I guess maybe it just took some time. Not all of them, though.
All right, Sinead, thank you. Just tuning in. Too much work lately. Know how that is. Watching from the beginning. Thanks for the treat, guys. Well, thank you, Sinead, for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the show. Yeah, you're probably a couple hours behind us, but that's all right. Plenty of material to catch up on. Laugh, thanks for the $10. Russell is in the TYT trap, thinking Trump is an idiot and dismissing him, but Trump is a sage in comparison to DeSantis, who is unlikely to make an impact nationally so long as Trump is in the race.
All right.
This is going to be a long fucking election cycle, because we're going to be having this debate every single show.
I swear to God, man, whenever I say this, you get some people who say, listen to me. I was very early in saying that Trump could win that Republican primary. And on the day of the election, when the New York Times was calling it, 90% for Hillary, I was calling it a 50-50 election, because everybody that I knew back home in Queens was voting for Donald Trump. So I knew there was support for him that just wasn't showing up in the polling. So no, I don't underestimate Donald Trump. It's a different moment that we're in. It's not 2016. It's a different moment. So I've never underestimated Trump. I don't underestimate him now. Obviously, he's more fun. But look at what the country has been through, man. Between the Trump presidency and the Biden presidency, a tight ass like Ron DeSantis, who has proven that he can govern, is going to look pretty good to people.
The question, though, is the country's been through a lot. Yes, absolutely. But I think, after 4 years of Biden, we're either we're either mid World War III or in the early days or in the early days of World War IV. I think that a peace candidate is going to do very well. I think that could really be a macro issue.
Yeah, he needs to find an answer to that. That's a lot better.
He needs to find
the military is too woke.
He needs to find a nationalist platform that can appeal to the Republican base. The anti-woke stuff is only going to take him so far.
I agree.
He needs an economic nationalist message, a sort of isolationist nationalist anti-war message, right? That's what he needs, and that will garner some working class support too, from Trump's sort of trade policies. Like, he needs that. He's going to need that. He's not going to be able to ride the gender ideology and the critical race theory and the library shit to the nomination.
Right. But none of my analysis is based on, Trump. I've never taken that approach. I think that he has been lucky in his enemies. I do think that, but yeah, I mean, he has an appeal at this moment in history because our system is so broken, it's so corrupt that basically electing a president who's a satire of the presidency has a certain appeal to people. But I think in the end, their survival instincts are going to kick in if you give them an option that they're satisfied with in terms of policy, which is why, as Keaton keeps mentioning, he's right. Like, he needs to articulate something on Ukraine that's not the military's too trans.
And labor and trade and all this other stuff. Yeah.
He needs to find answers to those questions. But I think that people are underestimating. It's not a question of underestimating Trump. I think a lot of people are underestimating how fucking burnt out people are on political chaos. And DeSantis is going to much more credibly be able to present himself as a way out of that chaos. Certainly nobody's ever accused Donald Trump of being the orderly one.
Right. Yeah, indeed. All right, let's just do this. Let's get this one over with while we're on the topic. Billy says Russell's fawning on DeSantis is like Kyle on Marianne. Hey guys, Rob is a sinking ship still tied to the dock. Trump will eat him up. That Rob is, I think, in respect.
We got a lot of Trump stands on our channel. So fawning on DeSantis, like you mean our torturer, Ron the Torturer video?
Yeah, we did do a Ron the Torturer video.
Like that kind of
Ensure
Ron. Is that what you mean? Yeah, Ensure Ron. Yeah, that's quite fun.
I think it is going to be tempting to litigate.
He's going to want to come on the show after he sees that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I do think it is going to be tempting to litigate the predictions a bit too often. We're going to have to try and see if we can work around that because it's going to be a long cycle if we have that conversation every time. But no, look, I mean, I think DeSantis. There are a lot of people who are comparing him to Jeb Bush, and even Trump did, because he put out that ad with the Ron with the exclamation point, and look, I think Russell is obviously correct to say that DeSantis is 1,000 times more politically skilled than Jeb Bush, right? He's 1,000 times smarter. He's 1,000 times more savvy and more ruthless and sort of cunning than Jeb Bush. I will say, like, interpersonally, he does give off a little bit of that Jeb Bush vibe, like the kind of guy you would want to give a wedgie to in ninth grade. Like in that way, I see a
yeah.
similarity.
Yeah, I
easily
agree.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like I don't feel like
he's a lot. He's fun to dunk on. Like even last night when that whole thing was happening, it was just so funny because you're imagining this kind of dweeby little pansy.
This is it.
That Elon fucked his launch up. Like it was fun to envision him mad. He's the kind of guy who gets funny when he's mad, I think.
He comes off like the guy from the evil frat in Animal House. Like he would have
right, exactly,
frat,
yeah.
Right? Like, yeah, he definitely has that vibe. I don't yeah.
Like
absolutely.
the soccer coach of the bad team that you
Right.
really have to beat in the final game in the kids sports movie. You know what I mean?
It'd be like the new coach of the bad dojo and Karate Kid.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That kind of vibe for sure. All right, let's do one more story before we get out of here. So, folks, as many of you know, this is a story that we followed as the developments have come to light here. Matt Taibbi's house was visited by IRS agents on March 9th, which just so happened to be the same day that he was called to testify in Congress about his Twitter files reporting. Now, it obviously seemed fishy at the time and highly unlikely that the two events on the same day occurring at once was just a coincidence. But now, Matt Taibbi has published a follow-up piece on his Substack, which really ought to erase any doubts about the corrupt nature of this quote-unquote IRS investigation. So I'll put this article up on the screen. This is from his Substack, and thank you to a friend and supporter of the show, Robert Penner, for tipping us off to this. My crazy IRS case. A House subcommittee investigation reveals new details about my IRS case that should frighten any journalist, any American citizen, for that matter. Saturday, December 24th, 2022, was one of the most memorable and most panicked days of my life. I spent Christmas Eve last year alone, holed up in the Park 55 Hotel in San Francisco, frantically trying to put together what I thought was the most explosive of the Twitter files reports, Twitter and other government agencies. My wife and children were due to arrive for Christmas the next day, and I spent the morning checking and rechecking a story I knew might make people upset. Now, I remember this because I remember thinking, oh, why would you drop such an important Twitter files report midday Christmas Eve? Like, it's just a very, very odd day. It happened to be a Saturday. People are out doing their shopping. It just didn't feel like a day you'd want to drop something that important. So it did definitely register with me. Okay, Christmas Eve, making this explosive file dump, right? So he says it was based on documents passed to Twitter by the FBI-led Foreign Influence Task Force. They showed the company was receiving content recommendations in bulk from an array of federal agencies through the FBI about a range of topics, from domestic extremist groups in the U.S. to leftist activists in Venezuela to Ukraine, Joe Biden, and the energy company Burisma. Moreover, Twitter was joining Facebook, Microsoft, Verizon, Reddit, and perhaps 24 other firms in attending regular FITF-led gatherings. At that industry meeting, companies often received an OGA briefing, usually about foreign policy matters. OGA is generally understood to be a euphemism for intelligence services in general, or the CIA in particular. The FBI had just denounced the Twitter files as the work of conspiracy theorists, quote unquote, whose, quote, sole purpose was discrediting the agency. If earlier reports made the Bureau unhappy, what reaction would this story inspire? Now, this is where it gets interesting. Thanks to a just published letter to IRS Commissioner Daniel Werfel by House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan, this is a typo here. Information sent. Information sent. That's a typo. You know, he should be called in. He should be called into Congress to actually explain that. That could be some kind of like perjury, right?
That's probably
he can go to jail for 5 years for that, I think.
That might be code for his Russian handlers.
Yeah, maybe. He might have to answer a few questions about that. That's kind of fishy there. That's a little suspicious if you ask me.
A little suspicious.
Yeah,
but
here's
we got to get Plaskett on the case.
Yeah, got to get Plaskett on that. Here's this letter here. The Committee on the Judiciary is investigating the circumstances of the Internal Revenue Service's visit to the home of journalist Matt Taibbi on the same day that Mr. Taibbi testified before the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government. On March 27th, 2023, we wrote to you seeking information about the IRS's visit to Mr. Taibbi's home. On May 6th, and with Taibbi's consent, the IRS produced some documents responsive to the request. These documents, however, raise more questions than they answer. The IRS asserted to the committee that it sent a letter to Mr. Taibbi on October 24th, 2019, 9 days after Mr. Taibbi filed his 2018 tax return, asking Mr. Taibbi to verify his return because it met identity theft criteria and could not be processed until he confirmed. The IRS alleged that it sent a second letter to Mr. Taibbi on March 23rd, 2020. However, according to Mr. Taibbi, neither he nor his accountant received either of these letters or any other notification that there was an issue with his 2018 tax return. That is until the IRS conducted a field visit at Mr. Taibbi's home 3 years later. The IRS also failed to produce these purported letters to the committee. Now, here's this highlighted piece. The IRS's production shows that the IRS opened its examination of Mr. Taibbi's 2018 tax return on December 24th, 2022, a Christmas Eve and a Saturday. That was the same Saturday and Christmas Eve that he dropped that Twitter Files report. Right. So now you have two unthinkable coincidences. Not only did they visit his home on the day he testified, but they opened this investigation up the day he dropped that Twitter Files dump, which was Christmas Eve, a Saturday. Now, anybody who's made a call to the IRS or any other government agency for that matter knows you can't get in touch with them on a Saturday, no matter what. Christmas Eve on a Saturday, they're closed on Saturday. They're not working Christmas Eve, especially on a Saturday. They're probably not working Christmas Eve at all. On a weekend, Christmas Eve, they open that investigation, which happens to be the same day he drops that. I mean, come on. That is what you call a smoking gun. It has to be. Even if you buy that the first instance was this crazy coincidence. To think that both of those days, both of those actions happen to coincide on the same day twice, come on. Come on. That's insane.
Yeah, and they tried to say that this investigation was opened in 2018, but they weren't able to produce any such letters. And Taibbi, and I'm sure this is true, says he hires a very reputable accounting firm for the last 10 years, and they received no such letters from the IRS about they claimed his account indicated it might be some kind of identity theft associated. There are no letters to that effect at all that they produced. Right. Obviously, this is political retaliation. I mean, this is part of what Nixon got impeached for, right? Weaponizing the IRS. Right. So why aren't we impeaching Joe Biden? I mean, there should be some accountability here. And again, I will just point out how crazy it is that we're living in a world where Jim Jordan is like a champion of freedom, right? Looking into the government, and who are the bad guys? It's Plaskett and it's Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Well, he gets into that. He actually says that at the very end of the article. I'll just read this off the screen now, and then I'll go to the second part that I do want to read from this. He says, thanks to Jim Jordan's committee for help with this, and for the journalists who want to roll eyes, I'd ask, why is he, Jim Jordan, the one defending reporters while so many news organizations have stopped? Why is a right-wing Republican congressman from Ohio defending journalists and not, forget about Democrats, but why aren't journalists stepping up to defend journalists?
Of course.
How is this not a threat to the profession?
How dangerous is that? That the IRS clearly are retaliating against this reporter. Who's telling them to do that? We really need to find that out. Like, they didn't just do this on their own. Who told them to do that? Who in the administration is telling the IRS to go investigate reporters who drop Twitter files? Right. This is not a joke. the fact that no newspaper, no TV outlet is covering it, we're going into the election season, so all the talk about how we have to protect the country from fascism is really gearing up right now. I can't take it seriously because of things like this. I mean, when I hear Democrats say we have to protect the country from fascism, I say, you mean like Plaskett, like Wasserman Schultz? Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
Because that looks like fascism to me.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Plaskett, that fucking piece of human shit, sent a fucking letter threatening Taibbi with 5 years in prison.
Yeah, based on a junk report from a semi-primetime MSNBC host. What is Mehdi Hassan on at 6 o'clock? I mean, you're talking about a mid-level MSNBC host says this might have been a lie under oath, even though it obviously so patently wasn't. And this idiot watches that and thinks, oh, why don't I send him a letter threatening him with 5 years of jail time based on this report, which she was actually dumb enough to actually cite Mehdi Hassan as her primary source for being concerned about this, right? I mean, this will be like if a Republican said, hey, I saw on Sean Hannity last night, that ex-Democrat may have done X thing, and therefore, okay, now I'm going to cite that as reason to threaten them with jail time. Like, you're literally just citing the most abject partisan hack you can find and saying, well, I saw this on TV, so maybe you should be in jail.
Yeah, well, and Plaskett has her connections to Epstein, too, as it seems pretty much everybody does. This isn't, that's not a right or a left thing.
Right.
Apparently, everybody was flying around with Epstein. RFK Jr., he was flying around with Epstein, turns out. Noam, all of these guys. That is terrifying. It's Nixonian. And the fact that as soon as this came to light, there was not an enormous public outcry, particularly driven by the press, tells you that we no longer have a free press. I mean, if the press is not going to protect a reporter from the IRS, who will?
Right, exactly.
Other than Jim Jordan, apparently.
Right, exactly. All right, let me just read a little bit more of this, and then we will.
And just a reminder for people, that fucking other piece of human excrement known as AOC actually jumped on that and went after Matt Taibbi after Plaskett sent that letter.
Just like the shit lib telephone game. She sees it on MSNBC, so she reports it, and then AOC, hey, did you hear what Stacey Plaskett saw on Mehdi Hassan on MSNBC? We can get
what a piece of fucking garbage she is now.
Ostensibly, okay, so this was after he cites that, right? Where, now we find out the investigation was opened on Saturday, Christmas Eve, which happens to coincide with when those files came out, right? Ostensibly, the case was about my 2018 tax return, about which even the IRS doesn't claim to have contacted me for 3 years before this new assigned date. The opening of the investigation preceded a visit to my home by an IRS agent on March 9th when I testified in Congress about the Twitter files and government censorship. Even more unnerving are other details in Jordan's letter. On January 27th, 2023, this is from Jim Jordan's letter, the IRS assigned an agent to Mr. Taibbi's case to initiate face-to-face contact. The IRS documents reflect that the case agent performed an extensive investigation of Mr. Taibbi using publicly available search engines and commercial investigative software such as Anywho, Consumer Affairs, LexisNexis, Accruent, and Google. The IRS's dossier about Mr. Taibbi, included information such as Mr. Taibbi's voter registration records, whether he possessed a hunting or fishing license, whether he had a concealed weapons permit, and his telephone numbers. When the IRS checks to see if you have a carry permit and visits your home at a time when they owe you money, it's time to worry. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, I mean, the details of that, like I said, it's just pretty chilling. And, look, I'm sorry, I don't want to reveal too much personal details, but I've had interactions with the IRS in the past. to my knowledge, I am in good standing with them. But, you know, I'm an independent contractor. My tax returns are a little bit more complicated than someone who's on a W-2. So, you know, I get follow-ups from them from time to time. Hey, what about this? Are you sure this is right? Yes. Okay. They give it, you know, I'm not on the wrong side of the law, at least not that I know of. Knock on wood. That was my wood table that I just banged on there.
I mean, keep it up with this show. You wait.
Yeah, right. I've been called by the IRS. Like I've gotten phone calls from people who are at the IRS. I've gotten letters from the IRS. You know, before they would initiate face-to-face contact and a legit investigation, you'd get a call. You'd get a call, or you'd get multiple letters. And I'm assuming a guy like Matt Taibbi can afford a pretty good accountant who's not going to lose mail from the IRS. So, like, I'm assuming it is very, very safe to assume that you'd have heard from them before they initiate face-to-face contact.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
face-to-face contact. I mean, there is no other explanation than that is raw political retaliation. And it tells you a lot about how corrupt the system has become, that they felt they could be that brazen. And I mean, so far they're right. You've got this Jim Jordan committee investigating it, but the press is not reporting it. And it's not clear to me that there are going to be any real consequences for this.
Yeah, no, I mean, it doesn't look like there will be, you know. And look, as election season draws nearer, I think these kinds of issues are going to become very important. Like, this just seems, from a macro point of view, this seems to be the conflict now, because this seems to be where the lines are most relevant, right? The lines between left and right just don't seem as relevant right now because there's not the possibility, there is not the political space or oxygen to actually move the ball in either of those directions, or certainly not in a left direction. Things could slide way further to the right than they are now, but there's not really any oxygen on the left. I mean, you couldn't even get a straight answer from the squad, as we demonstrated earlier in the show. Hey, assuming this, student debt ruling goes sideways, what are we going to do? Obviously, you know, the squad, right, the progressives, the left, has no real answer for that, which is why a lot of that Bernie agenda...
Right now, it's just a concept, but we're developing it into an idea.
Right, we're developing it into an idea. What was that? Was that Annie Hall?
Annie Hall.
Yeah, I knew that's a Woody Allen movie. I forget which one, but yeah, Annie Hall. But so that like, in terms of actually moving a left domestic agenda, that's about what the battlefield looks like, right? You look at the squad's answer to that, and you're like, all right, this is hopeless. So the more relevant divide has to do with where you stand on abuse by the administrative state, the weaponization of the government, which is what that committee is called, the weaponization of state, and to perhaps in this context a lesser extent, but still very, very much corporate power, in the sense that Biden is really doing the bidding of these tech companies, which in turn do his bidding, right? It's all kind of one thing. Right. Which side of that do you fall on? And there are a lot of people on the quote-unquote right who are on our side as leftists on that, and there are a lot of people on the left who are not on our side about that. So that is the more relevant divide here. Yeah, right, exactly. And so that's the more relevant divide, and that's going to muddy things up as we head into this next sort of election cycle, because that is not... These are not questions that Democrats have one answer on and Republicans have other answers on. There are Republicans who are lousy on this. There are Democrats who are lousy on this. And there are some Republicans who are good on this. The difference here is there are no Democrats who are good on this. Like, no Democrat spoke up for Taibbi throughout this whole ordeal.
Well, there's somebody who follows the show who's like obsessed with the idea that, I'm coding support for the right wing, and they used as evidence. They said, I've said on the show, if there's any candidate, if there's any candidate who can make a compelling argument that they're really going to do something about these tech platforms and free speech, if they really convince me, if I'm really convinced that they are going to apply First Amendment protections to what's going on online and crack down on the power that these tech oligarchs are exerting, they'll have my vote. And it was cited that that's evidence that I support the Republicans. I said, well, if you are assuming that the only person who's going to qualify for that parameter is going to be a Republican, that kind of says it all, doesn't it? Like you can't even imagine that doesn't mean I'm voting for a Republican.
Right.
Well, that's the point.
Right. That's the problem. Right. That's the problem. If a statement like that automatically eliminates one side, that means there's a problem with that one side.
Right.
Especially since that's the side that, a guy like Russell has voted for most of his life. Russell's been voting Democrat for 77 years.
83.
Yeah.
83. I've been voting for Dave Chappelle almost as long.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right, let's take some super chats before we wrap. We did a very economical show tonight, coming in at a crisp 2 hours and 51 minutes. We'll probably be at about 3 by the time all is said and done. I wanted to take this. This is not a super chat, but it is a member chat from Jessica. So thank you. And it's an interesting question. One day, will you tell us if you think Steve Bannon, is an honest actor? I believe I've seen you post chats about Steve Bannon in the past, and so thank you for the question. I don't follow the specifics of what Steve Bannon says closely enough to tell you if he tells the truth.
I lent him $20 for a cab. He never paid me back.
I don't follow the specifics of what he says closely enough to be able to tell you that he doesn't lie about specific things in specific instances. Like, he could very well make shit up from time to time, or even a lot of the time. Like I said, I know he has a radio show, a podcast. I don't listen to that, so I couldn't tell you specifically how loyal he is to the facts of a certain situation on a day-to-day basis. What I will say is that I do think Steve Bannon believes very sincerely in the overall vision that he tries to advance, that sort of right-wing populist, bottom-up vision. I listened to a conversation with him, and it was another right-wing guy. I forget who it was. It was one of the right-wing hosts. It was like Levin or Savage or something like, one of those guys. And the host started going on this tear about AOC. Oh, she's an idiot. She's a bimbo. She's this and that. And Bannon at the time, even though he obviously is against most of what AOC says, he says, well, actually, as much as I disagree with AOC, I actually think it's a really great thing that she was elected to the House, because he says, I think the House could use a lot more bartenders and a lot fewer lawyers. Right. So he really is a populist in that sense. I think he is sincere in that. Now, that's not to say he doesn't lie from time to time about the specifics of certain issues. Again, I'd have to listen to him to be able to tell you that. But I do think overall, yes, he does believe in the political vision that he puts forth.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I have several times directed people to an article about the new right and Vanity Fair. And Steve Bannon is kind of like the godfather of that whole movement. I mean, that's what's so fascinating about this article. Their analysis of what's wrong with the country is dead on, better than most of what you're going to hear from people who call themselves left. It's just their solutions that are often terrifying. Right? Their analysis is correct, but their solutions are scary.
All right. Let's hear this one. Beboposaurus. That's a fun name. I like that name. Don't think I've seen you here before, but welcome and thank you for the donation. By the way, we haven't done a subscription or like check this episode. I've left it up to you guys. I left you guys unsupervised this time. So hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. What are we up to? 9482. Can we get to 9,500 by the end of the stream? There's 430 of you in here now. Not all of you can be subscribers. Can we get to 9,500? Can we get 18 more? We're at 9482.
18. Come on, baby. Daddy
Come on,
needs
18
a new pair
more.
of
Here we
shoes.
go. Yeah, this is going to get pretty rowdy. This is going to be a rowdy election cycle, I can tell already. Trump is Ron DeSantis' gay wingman. Trump's going to charm us and hand us off to boring, straight-laced DeSantis. All right, so you're in Russell's camp then. You think that Ron will come out on top. So that's one in your column, Russell. And Tusker, thanks for the $20. Congratulations on starting an hour before and outlasting a commie meeting. Well, you should introduce the commie meeting to the show. Why don't you guys have a watch party?
You commies, ever since the Long March, man, you have no stick-to-itiveness. It's like you used it all up on that.
Yeah, so what? You started at 9, and then I guess you ended at 10, so you went for 1 hour. Went for 1 hour, I guess.
Well, I mean, that's the thing with communist meetings. You order the pizza, and as soon as you got to figure out how to divide it, the whole thing falls apart.
I brought that up to Larry Sharpe. That is an actual meme. I don't know if you've ever seen that meme. How a libertarian eats a pizza. Yeah. It's funny. Anyway, thank you so much. One thing we forgot to touch on, which we probably should while we have everybody here. Well, we got 435 of you. We got to do our little follow-up. This is not a full segment. This won't take long, folks. But Russell did have...
Yes.
Russell did have a back-and-forth exchange with Peter Dow on Twitter regarding his resignation from the Marianne Williamson campaign. So let's put this up on the screen.
And we agreed he's going to be co-hosting when I'm in Italy.
Right. Yeah, he's going to be the fill-in. He's
filling in.
So Peter Dow types this: double digits for Marianne Williamson. A recent poll had her at 11%. Proud to have led Marianne Williamson's campaign to its highest polling of the 2024 race. I joined as interim campaign manager mid-April, restructured the campaign, but unfortunately had to leave to care for my ailing mother. Congrats, Team Marianne. And so Russell tweets, man, what did she threaten to do to you if you talked? It's getting embarrassing now. And then he did issue a reply somewhere down the chain, right? Did he reply specifically to that?
He replied to what Dan said.
Okay, so here. I believe in third parties and abolishing the duopoly. I will continue to work toward that goal. I'm still proud to have advanced the most progressive platform this election. You have to realize how these two POVs completely clash against one another, right? Get real, Peter. Dan, have you heard of a dirty break? Oh, and then I see you were on that same thread there.
Yeah, okay. Exactly.
So then you said, I appreciate that, Peter. But Marianne's 30-year history of abusing her staff and silencing them with NDAs has been reported extensively over decades. It's pretty obvious what's going on here. For the sake of others who may think of working for her, stop pumping the campaign. All right.
So then we had a Marianne, a former assistant, jumped in here.
This one, right?
Yeah.
So then she, defends Marianne's sort of record with employers here. I'm telling you my experience. She replied to you here. Well, you said a really simple solution will be for Marianne to release all the people she's bound with NDAs from talking about the kind of purported lunacy that made Mike Nichols and others leave her AIDS charity, or that caused hotel staff to check on her, starting with Peter. Russell, I'm telling you my experience. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. We have people who will swear to L. Ron Hubbard's honesty for what it's worth. Since the reporting on this is incredibly consistent across 30 years, maybe Marianne Williamson should just release Peter and Jason from their NDAs and let them tell their stories. All right, so that was the exchange. Now, our contention all along was not that we knew what happened or why they stepped down. Our contention all along, we said this on our show, we said this on the Post-Duopoly show, which we did with RBN on Monday, is that it seems extremely likely from what we have been hearing from Peter Dow and Jason Call that they're not allowed to say what they really want to say because they are almost certainly bound by an NDA.
Right. The way they never compliment Marianne, the way they keep kind of talking about the platform and the team, never saying a kind word about her. That whole Politico thing where, that wasn't somebody talking out of turn on the campaign. They were directed to try to discredit them with a really stupid smear that they weren't left enough. Right. The Green Party guy wasn't left enough. The fact that Dow, look, I'm talking all this shit. Hey, Peter, I appreciate that. You're probably bound by an NDA. If that's not the case, you'd answer, right? He stopped talking right at that point.
It's right on the thread.
As soon as I said NDA, he shut up. He never. Now, if I'm talking out of my ass, you're going to say, no, that's not true at all. Marianne was wonderful, right? He doesn't say that. So now we have, well, however you want to put it.
He wants me to put this as diplomatically as we can. He always defers to me for that stuff. But yeah, no,
because I'm a loose cannon.
We do have written confirmation that, in fact, they are bound by NDAs, and that is why they are not saying more. We don't know what happened. We don't know why they left. What we do know for sure, this is not speculation on our part any longer.
No.
We know for sure written confirmation from someone whose name we will not reveal. We do not want to get anybody in trouble or let anything lead back to anybody because we don't know what the chain of command is.
Exactly.
Right? Or what
We don't want anyone to get sued.
Don't want anybody to get sued. Not out to hurt anybody. All we could say for sure, for absolute certainty, is that they are bound by NDAs not to tell the full story, which was very obvious from the get-go. It did not come as any surprise to me to learn this, but I did learn this for sure earlier this afternoon, and so we thought we should say that. And it's a difficult thing to broach because people are going to say, well, if you're not showing us the proof, how do we know you have it? How do we know you're not lying? And I could say, look, that's a risk I'm willing to take in order to protect people from
We got to protect our
battles.
source.
Right. I mean, they just have to look. We just don't want to get anybody in trouble. If push came to shove and we had to reveal it, we absolutely could. And if anybody wants us to, anybody in this media space who have shit talked about us or RBN or Hardlands Media or any of us for bringing this up, because there have been a few of you out there, if any of you need the proof, I'd be happy to send it to you on a private channel, on a DM or in an email. I'm not going to put it out publicly because, like I said, we don't want to get anybody hurt over this. But I'd be happy to send you the proof in a private message if you want it. All right. Yes. And I have a feeling you don't want it because you don't want to be put in a spot where you have to go out and run cover for this anymore. But we do have it.
Exactly. So it's pretty obvious what happened here. It's been very obvious from the language that they've used. It was very obvious from Jason putting up something about how they developed the platform and then pulling it down. And it's very obvious from, look, the stories about Marianne that they wrote 30 years ago sound exactly like the stories that come out about her now. So all of a sudden you have two staff members quit, and then the Marianne campaign is trying to cover by talking shit about them. And they're telling you in every way that they can that won't get them sued that they quit because of Marianne, but they won't say it. They're saying it by not saying a kind word about her, by praising the platform, by praising the staff. It's very obvious what's going on here. Marianne's a psycho, and they tried to work for her. I think anyone can see this. And the psycho came out, and they left. And now they can't talk about it because she bound them with NDAs. And now I would say on the thread that I was on, she sent a couple of her flying monkeys out there to run cover for her.
Right. And just once again, just to reiterate, we don't know exactly what happened. We never claimed to. It was just obvious from the beginning that there was some
shit
sort of cover-up going on. And that there was something, and that they weren't allowed to say what they really wanted to say. And that was plainly evident from Peter Dow's original tweet where he teased out details to come.
Details to come. You don't say that if you left because of your mother.
Right. You don't say details to come if the reason you stepped down was to care for your ailing mother. And we also received confirmation that he actually does have a mother who is sick, which I never doubted on the RBN stream.
On the
RBN stream, I said, I don't want to be like disrespectful in that way. I'm sure he does have a sick mother, and we wish all the best to his mother.
Right,
but what I said was, you don't tease out details to come and then a day later say it was because of a family matter like that. Right.
She called up. She said, "I will fucking sue you back to the Stone Age." And I mean, I'm just speculating. That wasn't said to us, but I mean, what's he gonna do? Go toe to toe with fucking Oprah's buddy over there?
Right.
Come on, man.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
He'll end up working at Cinnabon like fucking Saul Goodman over there.
Right, exactly. Yeah. All righty. Excellent. Very good. We will leave it there, everybody. I think that is our show. Thank you guys very much. You were a great crowd with a great chat, as you always are. Oh, yeah. Somebody put in the chat there earlier, because you teased this out earlier. Somebody asked this. Do you want to address this quickly before we wrap? What was the WGA strike?
Okay, so this is, if you want to go, those of you who are geeks know I watched some of the best of the pop culture geeks. So Doomcock at Overlord DVD, who has been pretty reliable, who has some sources inside studios, and his predictions have usually turned out to be correct, or what he claims he's hearing from his sources. This is interesting. He's claiming that the studios went to the writers with a deal they knew they wouldn't take because they wanted a strike. Because apparently, I don't know if I completely understand what he's saying, but if I'm getting this right, once there's a strike, all the deals are off because you didn't fulfill your end of the contract, right? So now the contract is voided. I think that's basically what they're saying. So basically, his sources are telling him that these studios wanted this because it allows them to get out of all of these deals they want to get out of. Who's the director? Anna DuVernay. Who am I thinking of?
Ava DuVernay, who did
who just did the thing that kind of tanked. She just
was
did
a big movie that she did, though. She did a big movie.
She did a big movie, and then her follow-up.
And then she did the Central Park 5 miniseries. Yeah.
Apparently, they had like $100 million deal going with her that they wanted out of, for one example. And also, according to these sources, it's a woke purge.
Selma, that was the movie. That was her breakout movie, Selma.
Was that it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm thinking of the right person. I could be wrong. Like, that name could be wrong. I think I'm thinking of the one. She was kind of like this feminist director. She just did a thing that was kind of Stepford Wives-ish with Chris Pine.
I don't know.
What's that up? All right. Well, like I said, it's on Overlord DVD. But he's also saying that it's a woke purge. Like, this is their way of being able to fire all these people who have made the studios unprofitable by, forcing them to make shit that nobody wants to watch. They want to go back to making Maverick. Maverick made money. That's the rumor, that basically they forced a strike so that they could get rid of bad deals and they could purge these people who are making their lives a living fucking hell in the creative and development department. That's the rumor.
All right, interesting. You're talking about Don't Worry, Darling? Is that the movie you're talking
That's
about?
That's it.
So that's Olivia Wilde.
Oh no, so maybe it is DuVernay. No,
Yeah,
because I don't think that maybe it is. Supposedly they were in like $100 million deal with her and they wanted out. This guy is Overlord DVD. He plays it with a sense of humor. He wears a mask and does a bit of a theatrical show. But his sources have correctly predicted a lot of things over the years. So even with all the theatricality, he has proven to be pretty reliable. And according to his sources, this is basically they forced a strike to get out of deals they don't want to fulfill and to get rid of the woke people who are destroying their business.
Right. All right. Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting theory.
If you want to see the whole video, go to Overlord DVD. I think that's the last video he put out.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. I know there are a couple of people here who are saying, said, don't reveal a source in a private message. Again, because of the way we got it, there's a way I can communicate it without revealing who it was. I know that sounds really weird for me to say, but that's why I'm not going to say anything more. There's a way I can prove that what I'm saying is legit without actually proving the primary person. So that's why. I wouldn't trust somebody not to spill the beans on the person. Right.
Yeah.
But
I was
there's
wondering
a way
about that myself.
No, but there's a way I can do it without actually giving it up. All right. So don't worry. I'm on that. Okay. Don't worry. I think of that. All righty, everybody. So that is our show. We thank you guys very much for being here this evening. It was great to see you all. We are going to take a couple days away from the show. This is our 5th stream in 5 days, so we don't care what the fuck happens tomorrow. We are not coming on. We will not see you tomorrow.
What does this guy know that we don't?
I couldn't come on tomorrow anyway, actually.
Somebody Somebody behind me. What's
going on here?
Is this like a Final Destination movie? Did someone see a shadow on the screen or something?
Exactly. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, yeah, I don't know what that was. Make sure I got the door locked. Alrighty, everybody. Well, thank you so much for being here. Hit that like button on the way out. Hit that subscribe button on the way out. And we will see you all back here on Sunday night. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. You guys are a great crowd. As always, you can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence to sign up. Zach, missed the stream alert. Here's a bump for Coke or coffee, both drinks, of course. Of course. Well, yeah. Thank you very much, Zach. We appreciate that. We are on every Thursday at 8, every Sunday at 7. So even if you missed the alert, just keep that in your mental calendar, right? Thursday at 8, Sunday at 7. We hope to be adding a new stream soon. And we will see you all back here this Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Until then, thank you all very much. Be safe. And, of course, be well.
Whoops. Just fucking around with the chat. Courage.
Please clap.